You're starting to sound your age, Mark. I walk in the morning,
Hey.
do some yoga, maybe go to Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if we'll have time.
I got to maintain all of this. Once you find out where the target is, you own the target. They really preach that. So once you figured that out, then you can determine what the approach you're going to use. I challenged my chief to a shoot-off. First thing, didn't even know who the guy was. We went to Iraq in 2004. So then we get the 3, 2, 1, fire, fire, fire. And then it was just chaos. But it has to happen really fast because they're either completely running away or the fighters are willing to stay. And that was the first time I experienced bias on a level that was malicious. We may have been hated by leadership, but on the X, nobody did it better.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast, a longtime friend of mine I've known for decades at this point. Spent 20 years in the SEAL teams. He was at Team 5, Team 8, Special Boat Team 20, Special Operations Command Europe, Naval Special Warfare Group 4, deployed to multiple combat theaters in the Pacific Command, Iraq, Afghanistan. Mr. Greene began his Naval Special Warfare career as a mineman and graduated from BUD/S in August of 97 with Class 212. Served 2 tours as an enlisted sled dog, we'll call it, and then transitioned to a commissioned SEAL officer in 2004. So the classic Mustang story. He's the author of Unsealed, a Navy SEAL's Guide to Mastering Life Transitions. His journey from a college football player to dropout, boot camp to SEAL officer, and sniper to civilian was met with many adversities. However, amidst the challenges, he found strength in his community, and he never faced his struggles alone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage. He's the dude playing the dude disguised as the other dude, Mark Greene.
That's such a great intro.
Oh, I appreciate it.
You're really good at this.
Well, it's been a few years, but I hope if I suck at this point still, I should probably figure out something else to do. But what's the last full book that you read?
It was Naked Economics.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, is there something kinky with that, or
lots of kink in there? The guy is naked on the front with a dollar bill.
Is that right?
Just covering just the juicy parts.
All right.
But when I went to grad school the first time, it was business school, so I did not know economics.
Yeah.
To the point where I should have.
Yeah.
So the instructor said, "Hey, here's a quick read," and I read it every year because it's it's the basics of economics, which I think everybody should know in order to survive.
Yeah.
And then even though the nuance changes and a lot of other different aspects of economics changes, the basics still stay the same. So every year, right around my birthday, I read that book.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just realized I jumped right into the intro questions. I want to take one step back and say, dude, holy fuck, who'd have thought that 20 years ago, like when we were going through SQT together, that we'd be sitting here in these circumstances, and how cool is it that life's path has led us back to this spot?
I was just thinking the same thing, and I don't know if you remember this, but you and I made a bet.
Really?
$10 bet on the mountain of, it was the day my beeper went off, it was the day before, and you and I made a bet about a band. That was gonna
Fucking band.
That was going to be the next biggest thing.
Oh, shit.
Marcy Playground. Remember that?
Really? I mean, I remember listening to Sex and Candy pretty heavy at that time. It was popular. But
speaking about kinks.
Yeah.
So
oh shit.
You said they're going to be the next big band. And I was like, they're going to be good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're going to survive it.
Well, it looks like I owe you $10.
No. You owe me so much more than $10 because with interest over time.
Yeah, it's like fucking $10 million.
I think
what would that be?
I think it's about $212,716.
That's it, huh? Man,
yeah.
I got off lucky with that.
Yeah. So
fucking, I don't know how do you remember that? Well, do you have a photographic memory that way? Like
no, that time in our life was so life changing.
Yeah.
And we were in the squad, and we were with each other all the time.
Yeah.
And we just got along. And you specifically, you and I just disconnected and we were talking all the time.
Yeah.
And when we made that bet, I was just like, he's not going to pay me.
I'll pay you. I'll pay up. It's like Game of Thrones. Lannister always pays their debts, right? 212. I'm gonna have to. It's gonna take me some time to come up with that, but we'll make good on it.
You know what? I'll forgive it because you're bringing me
All right.
bringing me on the podcast. So the debt is forgiven, but just know that I remember.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Up on that mountain.
How about I buy you lunch after this?
That's fine.
All right,
that's fine.
Deal. What's something that you wish you were better at? Collecting debts.
I wish I was. I wish I was a better parent sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest struggle is, or where's your weakest point?
Understanding, because I have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And understanding emotions and how critical they are to women and girls.
Yeah.
And when I got divorced, I was all of a sudden a single parent of 2 daughters, and like emotions were such a big deal.
Yeah.
And even though I think that I am a good parent, that part, it took me just 2 years ago till I just figured out how pivotal emotions are. So I learned a lot. I was, very rigid. Hey, these are the directions. Here's where we're going.
Yeah.
And you can't deviate from that. And then one day, one of my daughters is like, well, how does she feel about it? I was like, who the hell cares how she feels about it? the directions say this.
Yeah.
And they say, well, just ask.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh, fine. Libby, how do you feel about it? And it was just this torrent of emotional stuff.
Wow.
That mattered, right? I was like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. But to her, it was so significant. And then by the end of it, she said she made her case and it made sense. I was like, well, yeah, makes sense. Go ahead and go. So from that point on, I think I missed that because I have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
That I didn't learn that until I was 50.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I wish I was better at.
Yeah. I can certainly relate to that. I think, for me specifically, when I got out of the Navy, going from being a SEAL instructor, combat veteran, to the father of 2 toddler girls, owning my own business and being, at home with them a lot of the time, it was a wake-up call, but similarly, it's like you go from having such high expectations performance-wise, standard-wise, and the fact that how you feel about it is irrelevant.
Right.
Where, you're submersed in that environment where like those things are true about everybody you come in contact with year after year after year, doing dangerous, busy, op-tempo type stuff, and then now all of a sudden, like their feelings are hurt. And, to us, it's like, who gives a shit?
Right.
Fuck your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, get over it, But to them, that's their world. It's like they don't have anything to compare it to. So it's like that's the worst fucking thing in their world that could happen. And they're devastated, and you're dismissing and trivializing it, which makes them feel like shit, And similarly, like I didn't realize how big of a deal it was until they start to get a little older into their teenage years, and you really see what the impacts are if you continue to be that way with them. And similarly, like I feel like I've learned a lot and come a long way. Certainly plenty more work to be done, but yeah, it's a big kick in the nuts, I think. Being a father or daughter sometimes. Guys, real quick, I've recently launched Patreon for the all-inclusive mic drop experience. This goes above and beyond just ad-free. Yes, you are getting ad-free episodes, but you're getting before and after bonus footage of myself and the guest in studio, in many instances outside of the studio, doing jiu-jitsu, dog stuff, car, motorcycle, recovery, fitness, lifestyle, all kinds of different things. All the different things that I have going on are included in that Patreon page. We're releasing content multiple times a day, every single day. And I want to offer that to you guys. Just go to my Patreon page. The link is in every description or any platform that I'm on, and come enjoy that experience with me. That content is for you guys. It's what you want to see. It's about you. It's about what world you want to peek into in terms of all the different things that I have my hands in, and we're bringing that to you guys just for you. And I want to take one quick second to just say thank you to everybody who already has signed up. without your support, we couldn't do what we do for you. So thank you to you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in there. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero.
Yeah, and to see how unprepared I was, and that I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
It was, like you said, who cares about emotions? That has nothing to do with what we're doing.
Yeah.
For 20 years. And all of a sudden it's like it went from meaning almost nothing to being the most important thing, especially to a young teenager just starting high school.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's such a tough time to live, really. I mean, the early high school years is brutal.
Yeah, it's ugly.
If time travel were possible, where and when would you go and why?
I would go 40 years into the future.
Yeah?
Yeah. And only because back when I was born in the 70s, 71, Martin Luther King said, hey, in 40 years, the U.S. is going to look so much different. And it's going to be kind of like what I think a great place would look like. 40 years later, I mean, I've always thought the U.S. was an amazing place, but now I think it's even more so, especially for me as being a black man. There are no lack of opportunities. And just, a lot of the turmoil and struggle that happened to make this time now so special and such a great time to live as far as opportunities goes. I understand the struggle we're going through because we went through the same thing after the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And just America sucked at that point. We were assassinating heads of state in the middle of the street. Back then, we went through our chaotic kind of turmoil time, and the strength of the nation pulled us out of that.
Yeah.
And now I just want to say, hey, what's 40 years of going through another struggle, and are we capable of coming through as strong on the other end?
Yeah. I'm almost nervous to think what 40 years in the future is going to be like. Like from an AI and automated computer generation technology kind of standpoint, it's frightening the last 10 years of how fast things have progressed.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it's kind of worrisome. But
well, remember we went from World War II flying propellers to not too much longer launching stuff into space.
Yeah.
And walking on the moon. So
and underwater.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can launch a nuclear fucking missile from 10,000 feet, maybe not 10,000. Well, actually, you could. I mean, it's probably not the ideal launching depth. Whatever, under the water, and fucking wipe out an entire nation like with the click of a button is fucking gnarly.
Yeah. So the AI piece does seem pretty scary right now, and hopefully we can figure it out and not kill ourselves. But I would like that 40 years ahead. But to go backwards, I would like to see and understand how Genghis Khan moved and conducted warfare and what his mentality was to say, hey, I'm going to impose my will on the world. And what's that like? What's that guy's life like?
So I agree. He's a fascinating historical figure. The big question is, like, if you saw him in person, are you sweeping the leg? Are you taking a shot at the title?
Oh, yeah.
See what he's made of.
The Valley Championship? Yeah. Do I still get the soundtrack that's the best around?
Sweep the leg. You younger listeners aren't going to pick up on that one, but Google it. It'll be worth it.
The Hill Valley Championship.
God, it's classic. They don't make shit like they used to either, man. The movies and TV shows in the 80s were fucking epic, man. Now they're just lame.
You can't make those movies anymore.
I know.
Could you imagine Blazing Saddles coming out?
No, God. Absolutely not. Well, so actually there's a theater not far from here that plays old fucking movies, and but they always do it. It's not like, oh, it's a 40-year anniversary or whatever. Like, they're always playing shit from the 70s and 80s and the 90s. But I went and saw Blazing Saddles in the theater like 2 years ago, and I couldn't fucking believe, like, it'd been a while since I'd seen it. What was interesting is you could feel throughout the entire audience people like looking around, like, who the fuck's laughing at that? You know, it was like this like uncomfortable tension, like when somebody says a fucking off-color joke in a crowd, and you're looking around like, holy fuck, did he just say that? Like the whole movie.
Near.
Yeah. I mean, like, holy shit, how did they fucking get away with it? I mean, even watching like The Office, like, you know, the first couple seasons of The Office, like zero chance. I'm surprised they even still stream it, honestly, like with it being on NBC.
Caddyshack, The Jeffersons.
Yeah, I mean, fuck all of it.
In the Family.
Yeah, I mean, shit, every bit of it. Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes, from Mike Tyson. It's everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, there are tons of better quotes out there, but that one is like, in our world, we'd plan meticulously for something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the enemy has a say.
Yeah. And
then the plan goes to shit and you have to kind of figure it out. So that was really a metaphor for life and lessons learned. But then, even now, we're planning our life and enemy has a say, or there are circumstances that actually influence that decision. So a different type of punch in the face. Yeah. I agree. Is he going to take Jake Paul? Oh, man. I hope so. Have you seen him training? Yeah, he's a fucking monster, man. Like, if I'm half that good at his age, I'll blow myself probably. But Ron Jeremy style? Yeah, I mean, I'll get in the hammock. I'll give it a shot. Fucking cargo strap my neck around. Wait, what are we talking about? Kink shaming. Yeah, kink shaming again. Here's the bitch, is that the fact that it's even in question, like think about 3 years ago and saying, hey, Mike Tyson's going to fight Jake Paul. Who do you think is going to win? Even the fact that you're having to ask that is astounding. Right. You know, I mean, like, credit where it's due. Like, Jake Paul has come so fucking far. The fact that he got that fight and people are saying he's got a shot at winning is fucking mind-boggling. Yeah, he's got absolutely no chance. And you've unleashed Mike Tyson again. God, I hope so, man. And I hope so. I mean, did you know they used to have a special heavy bag because he hit it so hard? I didn't. I'm not surprised. Yeah. But, I mean, watching him, late teens, early 20s, in his prime, knocking out grown fucking men that are 270 pounds like they were children, it's just fucking frightening, man. That guy, and that is one thing, like, power's the last thing to go age-wise. Mm-hmm. I mean, he still absolutely is capable. I hope he lands just one. It's only going to take one. Yeah, just one clean shot and just absolutely levels that fucking guy. But I hope I'm not disappointed. Do you have an EDC that, living in California, I imagine you're not carrying, are you? No, but luckily I live back in Virginia now. Oh, okay. So I went full Texas and I'm a staccato guy now. Oh, no shit. Yeah. 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 What's the draw of that? I mean, I know a lot of people, is it the quality from a craftsmanship standpoint, or what? I just think the classics of just the 1911 platform. Yeah. And it ergonomically, I have huge hands. Yeah. So the 1911 wasn't ideal, but the double stack has all the functionality, and it's got a fat handle. Yeah. And I've been shooting 1911s for a long time. Yeah. And once the 2011 came out, it just, I don't have to rethink it. It's like shooting a SIG. Yeah. Is there, are you particular in terms of the carry ammo? No. You don't give a shit? Are you using ball ammo? Or I'm using ball when I'm practicing, but I have hollow points when I'm taking it outside. Do you even pay attention to the brand of hollow points, or you just whatever? Yeah. I'm not that good. Yeah. In terms of anything else that you carry defense-wise, or just that's outside the norm of keys, wallet, whatever, phone, anything else? No, but I'm thinking about getting trained in like stick work. Yeah. Like with a cane. Yeah. Because you can take a cane anywhere, and if you do it the right way, even if you can't have a gun, you can at least defend yourself and your family. Yeah. And you can take it on a plane, you can take it anywhere, and all of a sudden you're able to put up a fight as opposed to just sit there and take it. Yeah. Especially if there's a 12-gauge shotgun in the end of it, right? Or like the cane that you pull the handle out and it's a fucking samurai sword. What was that movie? Real campy movie, but like the old British, they had all kinds of weird shit like that in their canes. And
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
My buddy Clint Emerson with the 100 Deadly Skills, he sells a couple of like self-defense combat canes that are pretty fucking cool. That are pretty gnarly too. But do you not train jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or anything?
I used to train Sistema, which was the Russian martial art.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is as the Russians would conquer, they would take the best fighting style from who they conquered and then incorporate it into this fighting style. So I used that for a while, and then all of a sudden, 4 shoulder surgeries later.
Oh, wow.
And I'm just like, if I'm getting to fights right at this point, everything's gone wrong. Yeah. And in Virginia, I get to carry. So, I mean, if it
comes to that,
then I'm either going to walk away because I have I have a lot to lose.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to get in a bar fight. And if I see it escalating, like, or engage or disengage.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come down here and do your show.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. I don't disagree with any of that for sure. I enjoy training combatives for the sake of training. Like, I just really enjoy it, but I absolutely get it.
I would love to, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the shoulder surgeries? Was it the same problem over and over? Or?
Rotator. And they did a cleanup shot, and the rotator one was from my college football days.
Oh, okay.
And then they had a rotator, this one repaired, and a biceps tendinosis.
Oh, wow.
And then I ruptured my patella tendon. I don't have any cartilage in my toe.
Really?
In my big toe.
How the fuck do you wear that out?
I don't know. Oh, it's because I was when I was at USC, I was a full-time student, and they were fanatic about supporting veterans. And I was working on the veterans programs, and one day I became a full-time student again, and I was like, hey, boss, I want to walk onto the USC football team for spring ball. And he's like, that's the dumbest thing. He said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I love it. Keep going. I was like, whoa, wait, what? And he said, yeah.
That's awesome.
So I started training for it and doing box jumps.
Yeah.
And, I thought I was just kind of being a pussy, and my foot hurt. So then we start sending it up, and it gets to the president of the university. And she said, wow, that's such a strange thing to ask for. I love it.
What's wrong with you people?
So then I finally went to the coach, and he's like, look, Mark, we'd love to have you. But your eligibility ran out
like 30 years ago.
But yeah, I mean, I tried it, and I was 47 at the time. They had my jersey, number 47. I was going to walk in as a quarterback.
Dude, that's awesome.
And
did you get to interact with the players, go out on the?
So I met the coach, Coach Helton. We were at a fundraiser, and he looked like a banker, right? And he wasn't in coach stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just talking to this nice gentleman, and he and I are talking, and his son wants to be a SEAL one day. So I was like, hey, will you talk to my son? And snatch his phone and give him my contact info. I was like, sir, contact me anytime. He gets up to go away, and I asked his wife, I was like, so what do you guys do here? She's like, oh, that's the head football coach.
Oh, whoops.
So we had a great connection, and he gave me full access to the athletic facilities.
Dude, that's awesome.
So I would work out at the gym, and I wasn't allowed to interact with the students, but they could come up to me and interact with me, but I could not initiate contact.
Oh, okay.
Lots of weird rules with athletes and undue influence from somebody else.
Yeah.
So, but I was a team guy who was working out, and they're like, who's that old guy over there?
Yeah.
Box jumps.
That's fucking awesome, man. Damn, I'm there's a bunch of questions I have about USC, which we'll get to in the timeline. But man, that's fascinating. What's your morning routine like on days that you're in town? Like, what time do you get up, and what do the first 3 hours look like?
So 5 o'clock's a wake up
Every day.
And it was because I was driving 2 hours to work, and now I'm kind of on a workman's comp thing right now. So I'm very limited. So wake up at 5, go walk for an hour, take my daughter to school, and then go to the gym for another hour, just to get it out of the off the schedule. So
Yeah.
but I like building discipline into my day, and then do my work until 4, and then do yoga on Saturdays.
Really?
Yeah.
You're starting to sound your age, Mark. I walk in the morning,
Hey.
do some yoga, maybe go to Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if we'll have time.
I got to maintain all of this.
Do my kelp oil face treatment. So, I mean, workout-wise, like, well, two things, I guess. One, you mentioned the workman's comp thing. Was it a work injury or what happened?
So I don't know what it was, but it was one of the scariest things because my father found out he had cancer from an X-ray.
Oh.
So my dad hurt his hip, and he went into the to get an X-ray finally after 3 months because he thought it was a torn
Labrum.
hamstring.
Oh.
I think he pulled a hamstring. Thought he pulled a hammy, and so he finally went to the doc, and they lived 10 minutes away from the hospital. So he gets the X-rays, takes off home, and then he had like 4 messages on his phone saying, "Hey, you got to get back here right now." So he had a mass on his hip from an injury that he suffered when he was 15.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. So fast forward to mine, I couldn't walk, and finally my kid's like, "You need to go to the hospital." I was like, "Yeah." So again, like a team guy, wait 2 more days so I can't walk even more. Go to the hospital, and then I have this huge growth on my hip.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
No, it wasn't a mass. It was a growth.
Okay.
So I send the films to my doctors who did my shoulder surgeries. I was like, "Doc, I'm freaking out. What is this?" And both of them within an hour said, "When did you hurt your hip?" And was it 2018? I fell off my bicycle riding at the Rose Bowl. And this injury that I have now is basically a huge calcium deposit on my hip.
Really?
That's digging into the surrounding tissue. And now I found out I have 2 torn labrums on both my hips.
Damn.
So
Are you having those fixed?
I'm in the final stage right now. I did physical therapy. I did a cortisone shot, and then they actually went into the hip space and gave me another shot. So if this doesn't work, then the last thing is have surgery.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that like labrum surgery is kind of 50-50, where like it's not that successful a lot of the time, or it's almost like a flip of a coin as to whether or not it's even worth having. But have you thought about PRP or stem cells or anything like that?
I'm up to anything.
Yeah.
I preferred not to have surgery because when the doc did my 4th shoulder surgery,
Yeah.
he's like, "We're gonna have to replace this thing at some point."
Yeah.
So and he's the one who told me about yoga.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So I said, "Hey, doc, I don't want to get on meds.
Yeah.
I don't want to get addicted to anything."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, just do yoga. Yoga's
We'll
better."
put these spandex pants on and go bend over here. That'll do it. That'll keep you from feeling like shit. Because when you're done, you'll be so glad you're not fucking dressed like an asshole. Oh, man. Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of he's kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just, caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bub's Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. Biggest thing is Bub's is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. As you guys know, sleep is a huge component to recovery and really all aspects in life, and it's something that a lot of us have struggled with, for a lot of our lives, frankly. As you know, I've been a big proponent of Beam, which is a hot cocoa that you drink before you go to sleep, and it's helped tremendously in terms of hours of sleep maintained, as well as the quality of sleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, which is their science-backed hot cocoa for sleep, and it's got no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. As you know, other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess and just make you feel crappy, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin, also melatonin, to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/MicDrop, all caps, all one word, and use code MicDrop, all one word, all caps, at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MicDrop and use code MicDrop for up to 40% off. Where are you originally from?
I was an Air Force brat, so I was born in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And then we were all over the Far East, but home is Ohio. All my family's from either Youngstown, Ohio, or Columbus, Ohio. So yeah. Ohio's home. This is kind of where we homestead. So after my dad retired, I guess we got back from Japan in 83 or 84.
So you remember being in Japan pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
It was awesome. It was, anime was big, and I wasn't a weirdo for liking it.
Did you have a Hello Kitty backpack?
Two of them.
Yeah.
She had just come out. And
Speaking of kink shaming, what was it like being an American service brat there at that time? Were you treated different? Was it?
I don't know if I was treated differently, because we were on the base for the most part, and we would go out in town, and I spoke a little bit of Japanese. And
do you still? Not
anymore. Yeah. So I didn't understand the nuances of bias or racial stuff back then. We were just a bunch of kids playing.
Yeah.
The Japanese tend to be standoffish to foreigners. So once we realized that, so I don't know.
Yeah. Nothing super overt.
No. Yeah. No. Very polite and very polite culture.
How old were you when you left there?
I was 11.
11.
Yeah.
And then went from there to Ohio.
Went from there to Ohio. Yeah.
Were there any occurrences, instances, et cetera, growing up that were super impactful that have really shaped you into who you are today?
The first time I played football for the Mad River Tomahawks. I was in 4th grade, and we're getting ready to go to our first practice. And my dad stops and says, "Hey, son, before you start this thing, once you start something, no quitting." And I said, "No, okay, Pop, no big deal." So I start to walk away, and he grabs me by the shoulder, gets down to my level, and says, "Once you're on a team, they rely on you. So if you're either starting or you're on the bench, once you start something, you don't quit." And I think I was 9. And from that moment on, it's like, well, there's no quitting. So I think that has been the most profound lesson.
Wow.
That I ever learned. And it was at such a young age. And I'd never seen my dad so stern, but not pissed off.
Yeah.
He was like, "This is what we do around here. As a Greene, you don't quit stuff."
Wow.
So sometimes now I'll start something that I don't want to do because then I can't quit.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. What an impactful moment. Was the time on that team, did that ever cross your mind of saying like, fuck this, I quit? Or were there times, I guess, subsequently where, whether it's buds or anything, where you found yourself in the middle of something and going back to that moment?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where it's uncomfortable, mostly academics, because,
Because it sucks.
It does suck. And I was always shitty at garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't figure out what was important. So school really frustrated me, and wanting to quit school and do something else because I just couldn't learn the way the school system was set up.
Yeah.
I often wanted to stop at that. So then fast forward, when I flunked out of school, but I actually quit school because I didn't put any effort into it. Yeah. And somehow I could say, well, I didn't quit, I flunked out. But realistically,
I got dropped.
I got medically dropped.
Yeah, I didn't quit. I broke my whatever, and they told me to beat it. Man, that's wild. So you played football. Did you play any other sports?
Basketball and curling.
Curling in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm
Fucking
fully
curling.
making that up, but.
Well, I was about to go down a rabbit hole of, dude, will you explain it to me? Because I mean, like, I kind of get it. I think by watching it, you can understand how it's played better than, say, cricket. Like cricket, I've had people try to explain it, and I still don't understand it. But
I've seen it on 3 continents.
Yeah, still don't get it. Yeah. It's like, well, there's these wickets. I'm like, well, what the fuck is a wicket?
And you're a bowler.
Yeah, it's like, what? Yeah, and like the match can last 9 hours. Like, what are we playing, fucking Monopoly? Like,
and that's one day.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't get it. I also don't get what the fucking point is. Like
right.
how is that sport that popular in so many countries that just seems like a fucking weird, I don't know. To me, you should at least have some understanding of how a game is played just by watching it without having it explained.
Right.
You should at least get the general concept of kind of what the goal is.
Yeah, like rugby.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I figured it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But cricket, I'm just like,
like
you hit over a pin, and then everyone goes crazy. Like, what just happened? And nobody knows. So I still don't know.
Yes, newsflash: nobody knows how cricket's played. Man, how would you synopsize your childhood, generally speaking?
I had a great childhood. My parents kicked me out of the house at 8:00 in the morning, and said, "Don't come back until dinner."
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I was riding my bike and playing with kids in the neighborhood, just doing kid stuff, and every time I would come home, like, you know how you overdo it and you just have that burning in your throat? Yeah. You're just tired and wiped out, and that was awesome.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. And, traveling to and from foreign countries. Like I lived in Okinawa, Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and then mainland Japan. But throughout my time in the teams, I got to go back and visit every house I'd ever lived in.
No shit.
Yeah.
Man, how fucking cool was that?
Yeah, so
Did
the
you
house
take pictures and all that?
No, this is back in the 90s. We didn't have working cameras, but the house I was born in Alaska, and then the house I lived in Okinawa.
That's got to be a trip.
On Clark Air Force Base, and then mainland Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anybody come out and be like, the fuck are you doing? The fuck are you staring at? Yeah, I can imagine like some dude just standing outside your house fucking looking at it and be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I should have dressed up. Dread Pirate Roberts or something.
Yeah, no shit. Man, did you have siblings?
Yeah, older brother, younger sister.
Oh, okay. And did either of them join the military?
No, I was the only one. So my grandfather was in the Army. My dad was in the Air Force. And then I was in the Navy. So my grandfather was a Korean War guy.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad was Vietnam War Air Force.
Yeah.
And then I joined up in 96.
Yeah. Did you get along with your siblings well?
Yeah.
No problem. So is it a big age difference, or are they pretty close?
No. Well, my brother's 2 years older than me, and my sister's 7 years younger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that an oops?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big oops.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
Oops.
Does she know that?
She does now.
When she's 5, maybe not. Yeah. Man, that's wild. So was there a catalyst in high school or otherwise where it was, that light switch moment of wanting to, or realizing that you wanted to join the Navy and be a SEAL, or was it a path?
It was in college. I was playing football at Miami of Ohio, and then transferred up to Kent State, and then had my first shoulder injury back in 91. And I was going to be the next Randall Cunningham.
Yeah.
And
so you're quarterback?
Yeah, quarter black, they called me. So I was going to be the next Randall Cunningham. Not only because he was black, but I actually met him. And
no shit.
Yeah, I worked out with him.
Wow.
When I was in college. Nicest guy.
Was he the first kind of that new era dual threat black quarterback?
Yeah, because you had Doug Williams, who was good, and then you had Warren Moon.
Oh yeah.
But they were just dropped back.
Yeah, they weren't the dual threat.
Yeah, but he was the first one.
Yeah.
Who? Yeah. But he started off as a punter.
No shit.
He was a
damn, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. He was a quarterback at UNLV, and then was a punter.
Wow.
I think he recently he had the record for the longest punt in the NFL for the longest.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he kind of taught me the art of playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing, man.
Yeah, and he was just the nicest guy. So he shows up, and Dion's there, and a couple other big name football players back then. And I was like, that's Randall Cunningham. So I embedded myself in his pocket and said, hey, teach me how to do this quarterback thing, because in high school you don't really learn the sport. You just either have raw talent and the coaching staff just kind of makes it work. But it's a lot more nuanced in college. So I was well on my way at Kent State, and then had a really horrific shoulder injury. And one of my best friends up there named Jeff Turner, was like, hey, bro, don't worry about it. We're going to go be Navy SEALs. I was like, what? I was like, what is that? So he showed me the video, Be Someone Special.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that one,
Oh,
right?
fuck yeah.
Yeah, VHS.
Yeah, I can still hear the cheesy music and the narrator.
The dude with the mustache, yeah. And so that's what started. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that sparked it.
Man, that's amazing. Same here. Like that video, to me, what's remarkable is how lame and cheesy that movie is.
So bad.
However, A, at the time, and B, like, it was effective. Like as lame as it was, like, I guarantee you there are probably thousands of SEALs that are SEALs because of that video.
That video, and then Marcinko's book.
Yeah. And even CJ Karachi had a couple of workout videos, like SEAL PT videos.
That's
like,
right.
Yeah,
I
back in the day.
about that. Yeah.
I got a couple of those and kicked my own ass in high school for a couple of years working out to those. But yeah, that'd Be Someone Special. There's one line in particular where one of the instructors, he says something before it, but then they're kind of getting to the gist of the type of guy they're looking for, and he says, we want guys who will get the job done no matter what the job is. Yeah. It's just like that fucking just like resonated, and I just never forgot that.
Yeah.
It's like I can still hear it.
Yeah.
So wild, man.
Yeah, and once I saw it, the attrition rate, I was just like, who cares with the attrition rate? I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And
in fact, Zach, you can probably pull up on YouTube. It's Navy SEAL Be Someone Special recruiting video. I would love to put that in the episode if we can, because it's not super long.
The UDT SEAL story begins in May 1943, when naval combat demolition units were formed to clear the approaches to the Normandy coast.
Well, the line that stuck out to me was, it's an individual effort to make the team work.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. There's so many good one-liners in that thing, you know? Yeah. And I think it did honestly, like a masterful job at encapsulating the culture, attitude, and kind of aura of the SEAL teams, especially at that time. You know?
It was it was awesome. So saw that video. Fast forward, we're in boot camp, and they showed the video again. I hadn't seen it for probably a year or two, and that cheesy music starts up again. You get the goosebumps. And I was like, all right, I'm back. Yeah. So I mean, that was the video. I bet if I see it now,
you'd be like, holy fuck.
Man, that was bad. But
bunch of Magnum PIs in flight suits, fucking fast roping.
Yeah. But it was so that's what really sparked my, and then, you know, the Charlie Sheen movie, and the Rob Lowe had one.
Really?
The Finest Hour. Yep.
I don't think I've seen that one. No shit. The Finest Hour. I love it.
And
the 3-word movie titles, like Steven Seagal, like pretty much every movie is 3 words. Yeah. Hard to Kill, Out for Justice. You know, but
Under Siege was
that's 2, I guess.
That's a 2, but it should have been 3 because that was a great one.
Yeah, that movie is fucking great. Tommy Lee Jones on the scene as a bad guy. I love it. Yeah, it's awesome. All right, so fast forward, you watch that video again, you get the goosebumps, and then when did you actually, from there, how long was it until you actually joined and showed up?
5 years. So that was, maybe it was 92. I think it was 92 when I first saw the movie or the show, and then I joined up in July of 96.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we almost went through boot camp together because I joined in August of 96, but it's crazy.
So what took you so long? Well, I guess you were 6 months behind me.
Right? You were in 212. I started in 214, but I went to Intelligence Specialist A School, which was a pretty long A school.
Yep.
And there was like an in-between classes period or whatever when I showed up. I didn't actually start. Like I sat around for like 6 fucking weeks before I actually started. So I was just like in a holding pattern working out until the school started. And then the school, I think at that time, was about 5 months long. But
what ship were you in?
I don't remember.
Mike.
Like at
Great Lakes.
Oh, division, you mean?
Yeah.
418.
I was ship number 7.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, I was class 372.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I honestly, I don't remember the ship number. I remember the division number. But
were you even in the Navy?
I mean, maybe not. Could be a glitch in the Matrix. Fuck, I don't know. Maybe we're not even real. Maybe this isn't even happening. Fuck, who knows? It's hard to know nowadays between AI and fucking. We'll just blame everything on AI.
Yeah, everything's AI.
Yeah,
40 years
AI,
from now.
Yeah. You get busted fucking robbing a bank. It's AI. I didn't do that. All right. So several years go by. What was taking place in that 5-year period between seeing the video and actually joining? So
I went back. So once the injury happened, I didn't want to be in Northeast Ohio. So I transferred back down to Miami of Ohio. It's where all my friends were. My house was like an hour and a half away. But the don't quit was like pounding in my head. So I was just going through the motions because I was using athletics as a means to an end. And the only way you could do that was through college. And then I just slowly declined. And then finally in 95, I just flunked out.
Oh, wow.
Flunked out of college. And then I was working at Blockbuster Video and Walden Bookstore.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Taking it back.
Yeah. Do you remember that movie Clerks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Remember the scene where a guy walks up, like, do you remember that one movie with this one guy and this one girl? And he rattles off the movie. I was that guy. So this gentleman walks in, and Mike, no kidding, it looked like a pimp suit.
Yeah.
Morris Day haircut. And he walks up, and he's like, hey, man, what's the movie about this girl? She turns into an alien and just starts eating people. And he's like, it's called Speckies. My heart broke. Right? And I was like, sir, do you mean species?
Yeah, no, I meant Speckies.
After that, I mean, I was like, what am I doing here? And a buddy of mine happened to come in the week before. His name's Jason Arnold, who he and I went to high school together. And he walked into Blockbuster, and, you know, I'm in my Blockbuster uniform and Be Kind, Please Rewind, you know, reading that. And he just looked at me, and I was embarrassed where I was, because he's like, what are you doing here? And I didn't have an answer for him. So finally, Speckies came in. I was like, I've had it, enough. So I joined the Navy the next day.
Do you think that there's any chance that guy has any fucking idea the impact that that one simple question had on your career and life? There's no way, right?
There's no way. And I wish I knew who it was.
Yeah. So you could tell.
Because it was, hey man, thank you for.
Yeah, you saved my life.
You saved my life. I have a book out, and I'm on the Mic Drop podcast.
Dude, that's so fucking wild, man. It's weird how things like that, little happenstance instances like that, can completely deviate, you know, your entire life's plan or path that you're on at the time. That's incredible.
Well, he re-railed it.
Oh, like, really?
Yeah, I derailed it. You know.
Yeah,
flunking it, but he's just like, I was like, okay,
yeah, I'm better than this.
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
I would shake his hand and thank him probably.
Yeah.
I was like, but you have to get out of that pimp suit.
Oh, that's good shit. All right, so you go through. How long was Mineman A school?
Short, September to December.
Oh, okay, so
yeah,
a couple months.
Yeah, it was a couple months in Ingleside, Texas.
What's the gist of that?
I don't know. No.
So you're
on these.
The
I'm high right now. So you're on these wooden hulled minesweepers.
Oh, okay.
So you go to the Gulf and detect and disarm mines.
Okay.
And at the time, I only picked it because you needed a source rate.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to actually be in the Navy on a ship.
Yeah.
So I picked the one that it was a SEAL source rate that didn't deploy.
Yeah.
So I get down to Ingleside, and they're giving us the brief, and it's like, hey, you guys are going to be the first class that deploys again. I was like, what? I'm not doing that shit.
Man, I'm in the wrong spot.
That's in the brochure. So I go on my first ship.
Yeah.
And I'm so tall that I bump my head throughout the entire thing. And everything's so small, and then all of a sudden I get into their racks, and
this ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I can't. So once I showed up at Bud's, January of '97, once I crossed the quarterdeck, I was like, well, the quitting thing is out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to make it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to be because I quit.
Sure. Did you get fucked with at all coming across the quarterdeck, or did you check in like after hours?
Oh, I checked in after hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. It was like a Sunday night. There was fucking nobody around.
They put me over in the X division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
First like 2 nights I stayed in an open bay with a bunch of quitters, and I was like, what the fuck? Man, it's wild. What was Bud's like for you in terms of, you know, what you were expecting, or I guess expectation versus reality?
The expectation was I would be shaking from exhaustion and couldn't move at the end of the day, which was true the first couple days I got to PTRR.
Yeah.
Just because I just didn't. You can't prep for what you're going to do in Buds. So once I figured it out, the day-to-day wasn't as hard as I thought, but cumulatively over the 6 months was much harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Were there any specific challenges that you had during training, couldn't pass certain things, or almost, you know, failed because of anything?
Like,
fucking honor, man.
I had problems with swimming. So Corey Knowles was he was one of the PTR instructors.
Yeah.
And he's having an aneurysm yelling at the students. And I was like, I'm not a great swimmer, and we're getting ready to phase up, so I need to figure this thing out. So in the middle of an aneurysm, he's freaking out. I'm like, hey, Instructor Knowles, I need to come in on Saturday. And no shit, he stopped what he was doing. He's like, yeah, Saturday, 8:30? I was
Really?
Like, yeah. He just stopped what he's doing. It's like, yeah, it's 8:30 on Saturday.
No shit.
And I was like, okay, I'll see you there. And then he just starts yelling at me and gets back in the character. But every Saturday, I would go in and he would just kind of give me the basics on swimming, because the first time we went to the pool in PTR, we were there for 4 hours, and they just said, get on your fins and start swimming.
Yeah.
I got out of the pool, my feet were cramped up, and it's the worst thing I've ever felt. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. I need to figure this. Like, I could pass the screening test, but as far as being proficient in the water, I just wasn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've never swam with fins before, or even if you have, but not a lot, and your feet and ankles aren't conditioned to it, because those duck feet, are about like 2x4s, and there's basically zero flex in them, and I mean, it'll fuck you up. I'm curious, when he met with you, it was a one-on-one? No,
there was remediation back then, so.
I mean, was he out of character on those Saturdays? Was he different and more?
He had an edge, but he wasn't pissed off at all.
So that's one of the things that kind of surprised me almost, I think, with coming back as an instructor and seeing how much of that personality is a manufactured character, and that like all these dudes are actually, like most of them, I mean, there's a few that are sadists, I think, but for the most part, like some of the guys who were the most brutal, get the hammer award instructors were actually some of the nicest fucking guys. And they were doing what they were doing for one simple reason, which was because they cared about the community, about their brothers at a team, and wanted only the best dudes to show up. And that was the most effective way to sift through the bullshit,
Yeah, one thing I realized about the instructors were, they're really good at their job, but they're there to facilitate you graduating. If you want to be there, they're going to help you, or not help you, but they're going to make sure that you're prepared for the course.
If you're the right guy.
But if you're not the right guy, they will also facilitate you leaving.
They're facilitators, one way or the other.
Yeah. But we had one guy, they called him Nightmare, and he was brutal.
That was his last name, was Mare, right?
Yeah. And he came in, it was his last day as an instructor.
Yeah, fucking guns
and
hot.
Just laid waste to the class. Some dude showed up in a cast and his blues, and he's like, hey, go get wet. Like, I can't, I'm in a cast. Yeah. And like, I don't give a fuck. So, but he showed up at Team 5 years later.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he walked through the quarterdeck. We're all just like, what the fuck just happened? And he comes up and shakes our hand. Like you said, nicest guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
But while he was in phase, oof.
Oh, I know it. So have you talked to any of your instructors in the last 5-10 years?
I'm still in contact with Corey.
Oh, okay.
I think most of the other guys are, I've seen Instructor Getka on LinkedIn, but I haven't.
So I've talked to him a couple of times, and I still can't call him by his first name, I just can't do it.
I can't either.
Yeah, it's like, dude, I was 18 and you were like fucking Zeus standing there in your PT shorts with a fucking quiver full of fucking lightning bolts. It was just like
ready to throw them all the time.
Yeah, like I still revere him as much as I did then. There's just no way around it.
Instructor Ryan and I go to the same gym.
No fucking way.
And like you said, I almost don't look at him because he was.
The fact that you called him Instructor Ryan.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
it's like can't use his first name.
Yeah, I won't.
Yeah. To me, that's awesome. And I think it speaks volumes to the caliber. And I will say, I mean, everybody, of course, I think thinks their Bud's experience was the hardest, or that their era is the best, or whatever. But I do think that there was something very special about the instructor cadre when we were going through training. Like those guys, not to take anything away from the dudes that are doing it now, but like when I came back as an instructor, essentially a generation later, like it just didn't seem quite the same. Like, not that we were fucking goofballs or shitbags or incompetent or anything, but some of it I'm sure is being 18 and enamored by these guys are SEAL instructors, and you've seen them in the recruiting videos, and you've imagined for years what it's going to be like, and now they're there in the flesh. I'm sure plays a big role, but just like when I think about every single one of them, like they were all just absolute fucking just heroes and Adonises, like just larger than life dudes,
Yeah, and I mean, I still remember most of their names.
Yeah.
But Senior Chief Mink
Yeah.
was the one that was the catalyst for me figuring out buds and like settling down.
Yeah.
Because I took a heat injury, and people fake injuries all the time. So they're like, we need to take this guy's temp.
Yeah.
So they didn't give me the oral temperature.
Bend over.
Yeah. So I'm on the gurney, and they give me the injection, and I didn't flinch. Like, oh god damn, this dude's a mess.
Either he's into some weird shit, or he's fucking cooking.
So the instructor staff got in trouble.
Do you remember what your temperature was?
No, but I just remember everybody froze.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, he's hurt.
Yeah.
But because I stopped sweating, and somebody was yelling at me. I think it was Instructor Hammond was yelling at me, trying to figure it out, and I couldn't understand English.
Oh wow!
I knew he was yelling at me, and I knew something was wrong, but I could not understand what he was saying.
Man. Yeah.
And then after that, Senior Chief Mink came up to me and said, "Hey, Greene, what is the problem?" I was like, I just don't think I'm doing well. I think, no, you're doing fine. It's like, Buds just sucks. And he pulled out a vial or a bottle of Bullfrog sunscreen. And he looked around. He's like, if you tell anybody about this, I'm going to deny it. He's like, but everybody I've given this Bullfrog to is graduated. He's like, I'm a plank owner of SEAL Team 6, son, and this is for you.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Damn, that's cool as
yeah,
fuck.
He handed it to me, and at that point in time, I was just like, well, this guy, the pinnacle, had reached the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're good.
Yeah, giving you the thumbs up.
Yep.
Do you still have that?
I do still have
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Fuck, that's cool.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, physically I can do it.
Yeah.
Mentally I can do it, and this guy has faith in me. So
yeah,
that's all it took.
Man, that's incredible. What a cool story. Were there any other significant challenges for you and Buds that you found extra challenging?
I had a hard time with bonding and connecting with your boat crew.
Really?
No, and then losing them when they quit.
Yeah.
And
like that impacted you?
Yeah, because I didn't want to quit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so hard that I wanted to quit. Well, so why are you leaving?
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time figuring that out.
Yeah.
And then we had two guys in our class. One guy in particular just ran his suck the entire time. And like, okay, this guy, he's going to make it through Hell Week. He's going to carry the class because he's so good. First guy to quit.
Wow.
He was on my arm. And then the next guy, the next time we got put in the surf, he ended up quitting. And one of the instructors just said, because I said, hey, trying to get him to come back. And the instructor just looked at me and said, Greene, let him go.
Yeah.
I was like, Roger.
Yeah.
So
it is amazing that impact that it has, because kind of similarly, like the two closest friends I had, one of them quit before Hell Week, which was like earth shattering for me. I was just like, what? I was like, dude, what the fuck? I couldn't believe it. And it was at such a random, like not what you would expect time. It was like nothing was really going on. And he was just like, fuck this, I can't do it anymore. You know? And then the other one was like Tuesday morning or Monday night maybe of Hell Week. And that was a turning point for me where like it was after the second close friend of mine quit that I was just like, I can't worry about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're all on a team, but we're all on our own path internally getting through this. And I can't let that fucking bring me down. And I just kind of zoned out as far as like being super close with anybody from that point on.
Yeah. And that's what happened because the first two quitters of the class were those two guys.
Oh, wow.
And they both quit on my arm.
Damn. So fucking kryptonite.
Yeah. I was like, damn.
Everybody's like, I'm not fucking
black kryptonite over there.
Interlock arms. Not with that motherfucker.
No, that motherfucker.
Oh, that's great. All right, so you made it through all the way with 212, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Some other notable 212ers, Andy Stump, right?
I heard of him, yeah.
Who else was...
Jack Carr is a 212 guy.
Yeah. Fuck, that's wild, man. What a fucking pipe hitter class. Huh? Damn, that's cool.
Yeah, we had a really strong class.
Yeah.
And those guys were, I mean, the bonds you have with your class will never be broken.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the brotherhood part comes in.
Yeah.
Because with anybody who was in 212 who survived our Hell Week, those are your, like, you have a different bond with those guys.
For sure, yeah. I don't know about you, but I guess I'm curious. Do you find yourself ever kind of nostalgically living those times again where you kind of think of being in buds and reliving any of those experiences? Not
reliving them, but they're very valuable experiences. Like, hadn't seen Andy for a long time. Whenever I see or hear from Ryan Dick or Espindola, anybody who was in that class, I just remember the innocence that we had going into it. It was, we didn't know what we didn't know. Yeah. And we were just having fun learning how to be team guys. Yeah. And then go through SQT and meeting you in our group. I think that's what the brotherhood's really about. Yeah. Because when, like anything, when you get onto your actual team, you're in survival mode during selection and then SQT. And then it changes. And like when I was an athlete, there's some people I'm still friends with, and there are other people I'm like, if I ever see that guy again, I never have to see that guy again. Yeah. We worked fine together in that environment. Yeah. However, we weren't buddies. We didn't see the world we didn't have the same worldview. Yeah. And, frankly, he was just kind of an asshole. Yeah. Yeah. To be frank. Yeah. No, I agree. I feel the same way. There's just something special about that time because I think it's because it's the survival mode. Even as rough as it is at a SEAL team, training wise and stress wise, it's just different. You know. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so what was the break between 212 and then going through SQT with me? Since I was 3 classes behind you, did you go to 18 Delta? No. So showed up at Team 5 and had just gotten married and then found out my wife was pregnant. And we're having some complications. And then they did a couple examinations and thought that my daughter had birth defects. And we were going to have to go to a lot of appointments and stuff. So CMC's like, all right, stand down, make sure your kid's okay. And you're going to go to were we the second? Yeah. So you're going to roll into the next SQT class. Yeah. So that's what put me on hold. So then when we had an amniocentesis and Riley came out, everything was fine. Initially I was going to have a boy. Oh, no shit. Yeah. And I was just like, all right. Wild. Yeah. And then they did the amnio. I was like, so, he's going to be fine. They're like, well, if it was a boy, it would have been fine, but you're having a girl. Yeah. And I was just like, what? Yeah. What am I going to do with a girl? It's impossible for me to hear that and not crack a fucking sexist joke. Like, we think there's a bunch of problems. Well, there are. It turns out it's a female. I'm not part of the podcast. But I don't know if you remember, we were up on the mountain. It wasn't La Posta. We were doing camping or whatever. And this had a beeper because my daughter she was showing up anytime. And the beeper's going off at like 5 a.m. and it just keeps going off. And I yell out, somebody turn off your beeper. And you said, it's your beeper, stupid. Nobody else fucking has one. Oh, that's awesome. And that deep voice you had, I was like, ugh. And I looked down at his mind. I was like, sorry, Mike. Oh, that's fucking. I think it was La Posta. Was it La Posta? I think so. Okay. Because we were up on the top of that fucking mountain. Yeah, and coyotes and shit were, yeah. Man, that's wild. God, those were the days. Yeah. All right, so we go through SQT together, or I guess then it was still STT, but which was a great experience on so many levels. We went through with a lot of good dudes that are legends in their own right. Then you end up you show up to Team 5, or you come back to Team 5, and you get right in your platoon. What was that like? It was a great platoon because I had a Mustang officer. And then I had a damn neck chief, and then I had this old biker as an LPO.
No shit.
Yeah, Shannon Murphy.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah, and he looked
Like
like
a Hell's Angels?
Yeah,
dude,
yeah. Well, I don't know if he was Hell's Angel, but he looked like he's a Hell's Angel, and
Yeah.
he was just that guy, bald head.
Yeah.
And then, one day we're out somewhere, and people are looking at he and I like, what's getting ready to happen? Because these two shouldn't be together. And then he had said something. He just gave me this big hug because he's just a big old teddy bear.
Yeah.
And people were just like, what the fuck? so they established the template of what the platoon, it ran the right way.
Yeah.
The chief and the OIC were on the same page. They fought in private, but once they came out, this is what you're doing. They were forceful but understanding, and they're like, here's what right looks like.
Yeah.
And they that mentality really carried us through our first deployment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the template. Yeah.
Where's your first deployment to?
PACOM. We did
Okay. Assuming it was all exercises in Thailand and fucking Philippines and.
We went to Lamut in Malaysia.
That's a good spot.
Yeah.
Is that the only place you went?
No, we went to
all those other places.
Yeah, we went to all the other places.
Yeah. Well, especially back then in the late 90s, it was like there's nothing going on. Yeah. So you don't even have to tell me how that deployment went. We'll do the wink and the nod. Everybody else, I think, has a pretty good idea.
Yep.
So you come back from that, and then you did. How long were you at Team 5 for?
So I was did 2 pumps at Team 5, so 97 to 02.
Okay. Was the second deployment a post 9/11 combat deployment?
September 11 happened on deployment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How did that affect you guys? Where were you at, and how did you respond?
So we were on Okinawa, and we were the ARG platoon, but we're just gonna go to Okinawa and just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And then September 11th happened, and then the ARG actually stood up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
so what were you doing when you heard and you guys all found out, and what was like the initial hour or two response to finding out that it happened? Like how did you guys?
We were in the barracks, and we were in Simon's room.
Greg?
Yeah.
Fucking hey, Greg Simons.
Yeah. And we were in his room, and we thought it was, and he said, hey, you guys need to come in here. We see the first tower. I was like, what movie is this? And he's like, I don't think it's a movie. And then, slowly things are starting to come in, and then the second plane hits. And we're like, oh, we're at war. And then literally the phones start ringing, and we don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going. We just know that, hey, we just got attacked, and everything's going to change. So within, I think, 10 days, we mobilized the MEU. We got on board the Germantown and started steaming towards Jakarta.
Oh wow!
Because there was the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta. I think Indonesia was the largest Muslim population outside of the Middle East.
Yeah. So
we were going to do a MEO, we got on the Germantown and we're steaming south.
Yeah.
But we all thought we were going to go to Afghanistan, and that's when we found out that, hey, we don't know what war looks like right now because we're training for the previous war.
Yeah.
All our tactics were Vietnam era. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay, we don't know what this looks like. We still have obligations in this theater that we have to maintain. Because we were like, well, everybody's going to the show. And it's like, nope. Yeah. You're obligated here. Pay like ad cons and op cons. And I was like, what the hell is that? And so we didn't know what combat looked like. Yeah. So yeah, that's what September 11th happened. But after my first platoon, I was walking by, just hanging out, and all of a sudden I hear this voice say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Hey, she was just hanging out. What are you up to?"
Which probably gets said 300 times a day at a SEAL team. Yeah. Hey, the fuck are you doing?
Well, he happened to have an extra body for a sniper school.
Oh, no shit. Damn. When does that happen? Never. Yeah.
So I was literally the only person on the grinder.
Wow.
And he said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, I just got back." I literally got back from deployment, and I was all happy. He's like, "Okay, pack your shit. You're going to sniper school." I was like, "Wait, what? Like sniper school?" I was like, "Marine Corps sniper school?" And he's like, "No, our sniper school. First class starts in 30 minutes. Like, pack what you can in 30 minutes.
Holy shit.
And come to class." And that's how I got into sniper school.
Man. I mean, that's a drinking from the fire hose, like just whirlwind of an experience. I mean, did you struggle in sniper school?
Yes. And it's not, so yes, because one, it was fire hose on full blast. I didn't think I deserved to be there because dudes had waited
forever
to get to that course.
Yeah.
And we had some old guys who were happy to be there.
Probably some old guys that were salty as fuck that you were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, what are you doing here? I was like, I have no idea.
I didn't send myself.
So we show up and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they called in the Army Marksmanship Unit to teach us how to shoot iron sight with M14. And I was an athlete, so I had fast twitch muscles all over the place. So I was flinching all the time. So one, I bugged the shit out of the instructor staff because the way it was taught is not the way I learn well. And I kind of have a thing like I see the world in 3D, but I get information in 2D. And I just ask a bunch of questions so I fill it in the way that I learned.
What D are you missing?
And
you can take that however you want.
There's one D I'm definitely not missing.
How do you not respond to that? Well, on a serious note, though, like what's the missing?
It's the depth
Okay.
of information. So, hey, you have to shoot a target, and it goes this way. It's like, well, why? What is the bullet doing? Why do I have to have trigger pull? Why does that matter? Why does my body position matter?
So you need to understand the why?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. So, and when you're going to course full speed, they don't really have time to teach you the why. They're just like, here's what you need to do. Here's the objective. Do the objective, and then we move on.
Yeah.
And I just don't learn very well that way. So it was a 10-week stress course in general, but it was a 10-week stress course, even more for me because I didn't understand the information. I was just doing it.
Yeah. You passed, obviously.
Yeah, I did not pass stalking the first time.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us, I mean, that got most people.
Yeah.
Because they had a 10-minute class. The dude already had his gun made up.
Yeah.
So, he takes a shot and we all go around him and his gun looks beautiful. And they're like, okay, stalking starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
What's dead space?
Yeah.
What's the approach? What's the target look like? How do I do this thing in the desert?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, figure it out.
Can you, Reader's Digest version, the gist of a stalk in terms of how far and the time that it takes and kind of what the requirements are and
Yes.
why it's so difficult?
So they give you 4 hours and you have the instructor staff sitting 1,000 yards away. And they're sitting on an elevated position and they have binos looking for you. So you have the professional snipers hunting you and you have to use what's called dead space. And if you use it the correct way, it's putting something between you and the target so you can pretty much walk unencumbered until there's a certain distance where you have to use those skills. And so you figure out where they are, because once you find out where the target is, you own the target. They really preach that. So once you figured that out, then you can determine what approach you're going to use, and then you can pretty much walk up there for 800 yards, 700 yards, and then you got to kind of get sneaky, and then you have to get really sneaky within a 180 to 220 was the kill zone.
Yeah. But that's where you're trying to get to take the shot from.
Yeah. So if you're 179, you get a 6. If you're 221, you get a 6.
Yeah.
So you have to be within that window.
Why is that such a specific distance? Was it for the sake of following directions, or was it?
You just had to use your skills to, you had to mill the target. You had to, you had to know where you were.
Okay, so it's more about like accuracy of location, like, hey, being able to be where you need to be. Okay.
Yeah, so this is your mission profile. You have to be within this.
I got you.
This range. So, but they didn't teach it well.
Yeah.
And so I didn't learn it very well. So, but then later on, I figured it out.
Yeah.
I didn't figure it out well because it took me to the last. It took me to the last stock, and I had to get a 10 on it.
Yeah.
And I got my 10.
If you are seen, how do they know who's who?
So you have lane graders walking out there. So the instructor will say, "Hey, stop, turn right," and then walk. And then the instructor will say, "Who is this?" Yeah, it's Greene. The instructors up top don't know who it is. but
they can just see somebody.
Yeah, they just see somebody walking around.
And they walk in, the guys that are How many dudes are stalking at a time?
The entire class is stalking, so probably 20 dudes.
20 dudes.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever even consider the fact, or was it too stressful to like fuck around, where it's like all 20 of you get up and just run around fucking like totally fuck with them? Like, is that something that...
It was in theory.
Like, that would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
Like, or dress like fucking clowns and just go run around out there like assholes. I mean,
so the guys who mathematically couldn't fail,
yeah,
they would do shit like that.
Like they already passed, they're just gonna fuck around.
So somebody rolled up in a clown suit and somebody
that's fucking
rolled
great.
up in a Speedo.
Yeah, God, I love it. I love the sense of humor, man. That's great. All right, so you make it through there. You're still, pretty new. You go back, and then from 02 to 04 is when you decide, fuck the enlisted guys, I want to become a cake eater.
Right. You enlisted guys suck. You're not to be trusted.
Were you talked into that, or was that something that you completely decided to do?
Well, I decided because the second platoon's dynamics were completely different. And lots of talented guys, but our leadership dynamics were a lot different.
You can say they sucked. I mean, you don't have to say that they were different.
I will not say that. Because they didn't.
Less than inspirational.
They didn't suck. It was just everybody was a lot younger.
Oh, I got you.
So they sucked because they lacked the experience that everybody in my first platoon had at least 15 years in.
Yeah.
So we were just learning we were new guys, our leadership were new guys, and we were just trying to figure it out. So team guys need forceful leadership sometimes because we're ornery and we kind of want to do things our own way. But my first platoon didn't allow that. And the second time, the crazy people were running the asylum.
Yeah.
So the dynamics were different. And they upped the age waiver from 31 to 37.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
So once I heard that, I clept my way to graduating from college. And then I put in my OCS package.
What was your degree in?
Criminology.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
So you put your package in OCS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that take place, and what was that whole path like?
It took place in Pensacola, Florida, down where the Blue Angels are.
Yeah.
But I had to, you have to, it's very specific on how you get your package put together. And then you have to get interviewed by your peers, officers in the community. But you have to get letters of recommendation. And I was at a party at a guy named Woody's house. And this old World War II fighter ace, the only ace in the Pacific and the European theater.
Wow.
Named Dean Laird. And I approached him at the party and say, hey, sir, I need a letter of recommendation to go to OCS. He's like, oh, son, I'm not really good at writing those. He's like, but I have a friend who'd love to.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. He's like, but give me a call in 2 weeks and we'll set it all up. But Dean was old then. I'm like, this dude's not going to last for 2 weeks. So I had to go get other interviewers, but I called him in 2 weeks and he answered.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, yeah, I called Jimmy and he's going to interview you. I was like, that's great, sir, but who's Jimmy? And he's like, Jimmy Stockdale.
Yeah.
I was like, Admiral Stockdale, huh?
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like POW.
POW, Sear School.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking Sear School buildings
Yep.
named after him. Stockdale.
And so I get nervous and he's like, come up on Friday at 9:00 and be there. So I get all dressed up and go to his house. And Mike, he's the nicest guy.
Was he sharp?
Not as he was. You could tell he's a sharp guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time that his dementia had started to kick in. So I had this 4 hours with Admiral Stockdale.
Damn, that's
such
cool.
a nice guy.
That's incredible, man.
And the first thing I do is like, hey, sir, flunked out of college. He's like, stop right there. Like, I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
He's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Your peers and your eval say you're ready to take this next step. He's like, so don't mention grades again.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, sir. And so we had the interview for 4 hours, and I leave, and I'm just like, that was awesome.
Dude, that's incredible, man. Did you tell him that Sear School sucks?
I told him he sucks for making Sear School so. But Saturday morning, I get a phone call And he's like, son, where are you? I was like, yes, sir, I'm on my way. He'd completely forgotten the previous interview.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough.
So I had the same interview the next day.
No shit.
Yeah, and it was great. The same. I mean, I had the answers to the test this time, so I was much more awesome than the first time.
Dude, that's wild, man. I mean, he passed away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he gave me a mission that I couldn't accomplish. He said, he's like, son, you run with the big boys now, and you go tell, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank now. Senator from Arizona. McCain. He's like, you tell Johnny when you meet him that you run with the big boys. He doesn't know what you mean. I was like, yes, sir, I'll do that. And I could never get on his calendar.
Oh, no shit.
And he had passed away before I could deliver that message. So those were one of those things I'm always kicking myself for. I was like, I just needed to get on his calendar. Admiral Stockdale gave me a mission. I didn't complete it.
Yeah.
Shitbag. Turn it in, you tried it.
Yeah, turn it in. Give me your commission. So you get your commission, and then now you go all the way to the East Coast, because typically if you're prior enlisted on whatever coast, if you get a commission, they'll usually send you to the other coast so that you're not now an officer with the guys that you used to be an enlisted guy with. Obviously that can still happen, but it's less likely.
Right. So I PCS'd over to the East Coast to teach the sniper school on the East Coast. And then...
That was your first assignment as an officer?
Enlisted. I was still enlisted guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I showed up, PCS'd to Little Creek, and was an enlisted sniper instructor.
Wow.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then got picked up for my commission and showed up at OCS in like September.
Oh, okay.
September, October.
Did you do any, did you pull any pranks as a sniper instructor with the students?
All the time, yeah.
Is there one that stands out?
We put dummy rounds when they were
miss,
when they
fail,
when there was like when they're taking when you're stalking, you have to take a shot.
Yeah, and
you hand the student their second round.
That's fucking awesome.
So sometimes we would put in dummy rounds. But it was only after they were going to pass.
Yeah.
But
fail.
Like, what is wrong with you? It's a 10 a week.
Fucking great. Blanks would be even better. Like if you get, it still goes off.
No, the dummy, because they shoot blanks anyway.
Okay.
But the dummy round, you see them like flinch and all their bad habits show up. It's like,
that's so awesome.
Day one, week one.
Yeah. All right, so you're on the East Coast, you get your commission, you go through OCS, pretty standard shit, I assume. Nothing stood out as being...
No, it was... Because I was... you didn't know that they have instructor guides, IGs, on, hey, you can only beat them for X amount of time. So I already knew that... I knew how the game was played.
Yeah.
So then I could just kind of weird way relax and get the kids who did not understand what was going on. We've just been playing video games and getting drunk in college for 4 years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, these mean drill instructors come in and they're getting yelled at for the first time, and just watch the panic on those kids' face.
You're just laughing.
And I'm just like, ha.
You fucking pussy.
I was like, this is we got about 13 more minutes. Yeah. And, but, the drill instructors absolutely terrified those kids.
Yeah.
So I became a babysitter and was like, hey, guys.
Chill out.
Everything's good. Let me take the brunt of what they're doing. Yeah. You just go be a student.
Yeah.
And figure that student shit out.
Yeah. How long is it?
13 weeks.
Oh, wow. Do you feel like it does at least an adequate job at preparing young officers to go learn how to be officers? Obviously, it's not doing that, but I mean... Yeah,
you give them leadership, little bits of leadership, and it's really indoctrinating them to... Attention to detail is big, because making mistakes matter, especially if you're in a plane or a nuclear engineer or something. Like, shit happens.
Yeah.
In bad situations, so you just kind of have to give them the basics and say, hey, here's how you're using dress and folding stuff as a means of teaching other attributes.
Yeah.
And they do a good job, but as anything, you learn OJT, because I've graduated college 3 times. I've never worked in the field in which I studied.
Yeah.
Because you just need to know the basics, and they're going to train you and teach you how
to do
they want to teach you and the way they want to teach it.
Yeah. All right. So you get your butter bars. Now it's Ensign Greene.
All the time, sir.
And you get your first assignment, and then you went to Team 8?
Then I went to Team 8, yeah.
Was that weird, like from having been an enlisted guy and now all of a sudden you're an officer? Is there kind of almost a imposter syndrome feeling? Or?
Yeah, it was a lot of that because I knew what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and I was like, shit, I don't know how to be an officer.
Yeah.
I went to 13 weeks, and I was just a literally an E5 14 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I did understand you had to have a separation from the guys, which I really had a hard time with.
You're trying to fraternize with everybody.
Well, I mean, I wanted to be an E5 again. I wanted to get on the 60 again.
Yeah.
But you just have to separate yourself. And the first thing I did was I challenged my chief to a shoot-off.
No shit.
First thing. I didn't even know who the guy was. I was like, Chief, me and you.
Hey, chump.
Yeah,
shoot.
Get your ass up here.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
great.
challenged him to a shoot-off, and luckily I won.
Yeah.
And the enlisted guys were like, okay, well, he doesn't suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's
they
all
all
right.
knew you were a Mustang, right? I mean,
They did, but they're still they're not quite sure if you're an officer or you're an officer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something where, like, did you put any thought into communicating, hey, I was an enlisted guy, or did you just let them talk about it? Like, did you introduce yourself that way?
No, so they knew I was prior enlisted, but I let my actions do all the talking.
Yeah.
I wasn't giving anybody any orders.
Yeah.
And I just let them know, like, hey guys, like, Ensign Greene, you got it, but I'm learning. So I've been out of the game for a couple years or almost 2 years at that time.
Yeah.
All the tactics had changed.
Yeah. And
So-
we're at war now.
Right, and we're at war now. So I'm also learning. So
Yeah.
I'm an ensign, but teach me what you got.
Yeah.
And they really respected that. And I showed them a high level of respect. I wasn't like, I'm an ensign now, so I didn't have that air of being an officer. I was just like, hey man, I used to be an enlisted guy. My position's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm still a team guy, and we still have a job to do. So
Yeah. What was the first deployment you went on with Team 8?
we went to Iraq in 2004.
That's a busy time to be there.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I think I'd been at every SEAL team at that time because I had orders to 2, and then they say, hey, Team 4 needs you to come on over. So shook the guy's hand, went over to Team 4, and sitting there talking with ops, and he gets a call and says, yeah, he's actually right here. Okay. And he said, Mark, nice to meet you. Head over to Team 8. You're an Echo Platoon, and you start your work up on Monday.
Wait, what?
So I had all the teams within 20 minutes.
Wow. Man, that's wild. I'm assuming it was a normal workup with them getting ready to go to Iraq. Once you guys were there, where were you at, and was there, especially from an officer standpoint, was it communicated to you kind of what the 30,000 foot view goal of being there was to accomplish?
Well, we had the mission of guarding the interim government. Mm-hmm. So we were for most of the part, we were making sure the deputy prime minister, Dr. Barham Salih, got to and from the green zone and got out into town. And then whenever he went to Sulaymaniyah up in Kurdistan, but when the platoon would leave, they would let me actually go out and do ops.
And were those mostly DAs and shit like that?
No, it was mostly sniper
Really?
stuff. Yeah.
Did you get some good sniper work in?
Oh yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Are there any sniper ops that really stand out as being exceptionally memorable for you?
The first one and my last one. So the first one, I hadn't crossed the bridge of, hey, you're not in training anymore.
Yeah.
So we insert in, and we're trying to find this guy who's been terrorizing the locals.
From just being a dick, or like actually?
Yeah, he's going around just shooting
Okay.
people. So he's our target. So we get our sniper team ready, and then we insert almost at dusk or at dawn. So as the sun's coming up, we're finally finalizing our hides, and we look like a bush and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, I see these heads bouncing, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And it's a bunch of goats.
What the fuck? Oh, that's great.
So I see these ears flopping, and I was like, "Am I not seeing this the right way?" And so I get on I was like, "Hey, what is heading up on the east?" And I was like, "Sir, it's a bunch of goats." I was like, "Okay, I got that right." So this guy had walked his goats on that path for however long. So he comes over and he literally stops right in front of our hide. And no shit, he's talking to his wife, lifts up his thing and drops a deuce.
No shit.
Right in front of us. Yeah, and looks into the bush where we're sitting. And you can tell when somebody sees you. And he's looking at the bush, and the goats are eating our hide.
Holy shit.
I'm just like, so sniper rifles are gone, right? So we all pull out our pistols, and we're getting ready to shoot this guy if he sees us. And he didn't see us, and he just kept walking the goats.
Did he wipe his ass?
He
Do you remember?
did not. He got some dirt and just kind of.
No shit.
Yeah, I don't like telling that story, but
man,
yeah,
fucking gnarly, taking a shit right in front of you.
Yeah, so
like right in front of you.
Right, like
like you saw his asshole dilate.
Yes.
Right in front of you. I'm gonna go there.
Yeah, it was the most awful thing I've ever seen.
That's fucking great.
But then the next one was an actual. So I was still in training mode. So I was like, "Hey, we have to wait till nighttime to get extracted." And one of the guys who'd been there, this is his second deployment, is like, "Hey, boss, we need to go." And in my mind, I was like, "Well, we gotta wait for it." He's like, "No, we're good. Like nothing else can happen." So I made the call, and they came and picked us up, and I was like, "Huh, we're not. This is different."
Yeah.
So the next one was the no shit one.
So you guys didn't take a shot on
No, no, we didn't even see the guy. Yeah. But that was my first like mission in Iraq, and the second one was we were going in downtown Baghdad, and gang members were there, and like no shit, terrorists were walking around. So we inserted 5 sniper teams, and the way they teach sniper is they teach counter sniper. So if you don't do everything right, you assume that there's a sniper out there hunting for you.
Yeah.
So you have to. We build an urban hide, and it's a little bit different. It's a lot different than a rural hide. And we sit up. We get on target at dawn. So we literally break into somebody's house, kick them out, and then we take over the spot. And so then we're up, and the bad guys meet the parameters for taking shots.
What do those parameters consist of, or what did they then?
Military age male.
Looked at you wrong.
Well, we were 400 yards away. So. They had different sashes on their arms, and they were wearing all black. So once
what were the sashes about?
That showed which gang they were in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, were they like legitimate terrorists, or was it more like organized crime gang kind of shit?
It was more probably organized crime, but what they were doing was they were transporting IED material.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like gangs from a logistics and support standpoint, like supporting terrorist activity.
Yeah, and they were foreign fighters too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow. And then all of a sudden, all the sniper teams are like, "Hey, these meet the criteria." So then we get the 3, 2, 1, fire, and then it was just chaos.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So first target's like 250 yards away, which is like I might as well be shooting from me to you.
Yeah.
And you don't see your first shot because I'm on an elevated position. Like basically, I had to make a shooting position out of your desk. So it's not super stable. So every time I would take a shot, I would come off target. So the spotter would say, "Hey, that's a good shot." And next target's at 11 o'clock. Looks like he's 300, 325, and do a hold. And then you just take your other shot, and you're relying on your spotter to say, "Hey, that's a good shot. Next target's so and so." So when you're in an urban environment, you don't have what are called indicators, either be it trees flags, showing you which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
So you can either look down at the ground and look at the mirage. And if the mirage is doing what's called a boil, the mirage is just coming straight up. There's no wind. But if there is a wind coming, it actually pushes the mirage over. And then there's kind of a calculation. If it's bending like this, it's 8 to 10. And then if it's bending like this, it's over 20.
Yeah.
So you can actually tell what the wind's doing, because the wind is the biggest indicator of if you hit the target or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's usually an hour on, hour off. So I'm on glass on the gun for an hour, and then we switch out, and then I become the spotter.
Yeah.
So it gets spicy out there. But so we're engaging targets, and then it's time to go.
How long were you in that hour on, hour off and target engaging?
We didn't engage until hour number 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man. And were you spotting or shooting on the engagement?
I was spotting for the first engagement, and then we would switch out.
And so you ended up actually shooting somebody sniper-wise?
Yeah.
Do you remember the distance?
It was we ranged them at 225.
Wow. I'm curious, to have a sniper that's taken that shot, and this is your first one after you were the spotter and you're the actual shooter. Can you kind of walk us through that couple of minute process from identifying through the entire shot?
Yeah. So
and sorry to interrupt, and kind of what's going through your mind, if anything, any emotions, any thoughts, any of that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you want me to do it from the shooter perspective or spotter?
Shooter.
Okay. So
when you were doing it.
So I am on target, and we do what's called a range card. So possible target spots at the end of this building's 225. Somebody's going to probably poke their head out, and then you range it out to probably 400 or 500. And then the spotter's behind me, and he has to get right behind my gun because he needs to track where the round is going. In case I happen to miss, then he's gonna, hey, come down a minute, over a minute, re-engage. So he's and every few seconds, he's reconfirming what the wind's doing. And he's like, okay, if you take your shot, hold 1 minute to the right. So normally in that wind condition, I was holding on the person's left chest. So over 220 yards, going to push the round, hit him center mass. And he's just calling out distances and reconfirming what the wind's doing. And then once the target comes up, he's like, target's right there, cleared to fire. And then I would take the shot, and like I said, it would come off target, so I didn't actually see the impact. All I could see was the spotter's like, that's a good shot. And he's like, okay, we have another one at 11 o'clock, 325. And then I'd have to scoot over, and but it has to happen really fast, because as rounds are flying, they're starting to, they're reacting, and they see people going down. So they're smart, and they're either completely running away, or the fighters are willing to stay. So then it's a constant check-in. Wind's still doing this. But at some point he kind of disengages, and you just kind of go into a zone, because it's like, yeah, I got the target, and I see where they're coming. Just point out where they are, and I'll point out the distance, because at that time you're so dialed in, and your weapon system. And I had a 300 Win Mag, so it shoots really flat and doesn't really get affected by the wind until about 300 or 400 yards. So it's almost point of aim, point of impact. So after the first couple shots, I don't rely so much on the spotter, because I can see where the shots are going, and if I'm calling my shot the right way, then it's actually hitting the target. And all I'm waiting for him to say is, that's a good hit, your next target's here. Yeah. Or if we're not on the same page, if he's looking at 2 o'clock and I see a target at 11, I'll disregard what he's saying at 2. I was like, hey, I got another target at 11:30. He's like, roger that. And hopefully he'll find him, but that's not always the case, because it is chaotic out there, and you're kind of bouncing around all over targets. Yeah. So, and you have that oh shit moment. The first time, at 225, you can still see his face, but his eyes have kind of a shadow. And at certain distances, you start to lose facial features. But at 200 yards, you can see his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see his sweat and all that stuff. So it's really surreal when you're like, okay, this is not a paper target anymore.
Yeah.
This is a guy and doing bad stuff. So you're at work. So it doesn't hit you that, hey, he's got a family or something back home. We're at work and he's going to hurt Americans. So we can't allow that.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're at work and it's all business. It's not, there's no emotion involved with it. You're not like, oh man, I just hurt this guy. I shot him in the leg. It's like, hey, American was saved. And that's really how we approach it. Yeah.
Was there any emotion afterwards, like it being the first time you'd ever pulled the trigger and taken somebody's life?
Yeah. It's like, that's when I start to think, it's like, man, did I create a new terrorist today, or his kid's not going to see him anymore, or what's that going to be like? And, because I had kids and I put myself in, what if my family finds out that I'm not coming home, and then you just remember what their face looked like.
Yeah.
Right before you took the shot, because that's the last thing you see.
Yeah.
His face, and then when you're dialing into where your crosshair is, because you have that front sight focus, and then when you just pull the trigger, 2.5 pounds of pressure.
Yeah.
And that jewel trigger.
Is his face and that kind of last image that you see before you pull the trigger, is that something that ever either haunts you or comes back since then, like in the last 10, 15 years? Has that ever been something that's bothered you?
I don't see his face every day, but if somebody's similar features, it
like it kind of weirds you out almost? Or
yeah, you kind of like, man, looking back on it.
Yeah.
20 years?
Yeah.
20 years ago. Like, man, you changed lives at that point.
Yeah.
But then, quickly come back. It's like, well, somebody else is alive because he's not.
Yeah.
And that's what you signed up to do. That's what you earn the right to have a trident and do that sniper op you're doing, because you're proficient at that level.
And your country asked you to.
And yeah.
And do you know where you hit that guy? I mean, was it center mass?
Yeah, it was center mass. Mm-hmm.
When you were a spotter and you're seeing the whole thing unfold, were the shots that your sniper partner take, were they all center mass also?
No, he tended to shoot. They were within the kill zone. He'd like to shoot center mass, just because of the distance. So he was always point of aim, point of impact. And I would kind of hedge my bet, and I just wanted to get a kill shot, because it's not like the movies where you hit a guy and they're dead. You hit the guy and then they're maybe an hour later they're still writhing around down there.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So you can't. And the thing is, ROE wise, you can't re-engage him once he's down.
That seems dumb.
It does. It is dumb. It's because it's some guy in DC saying, hey, you got to be merciful. And it's like the more merciful thing is to put him out of his misery. And that got drilled in because somebody had a shot and the guy was down, and he's just like, man, I got to put this guy out of his misery. Took the shot, and the only thing that saved him was the round hit the deck first and then hit the target.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So if it had not done that, he'd have gotten charged?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That seems fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So the shot that you took, like you saw that guy injured fucking rolling around afterwards?
Yeah, so I'm writhing around afterwards.
Like for an hour?
I didn't stay on him for an hour because we had to prep to move from there, but he was out there for a while.
Enough to where he couldn't get up.
Yeah, he wasn't going anywhere. So because there's so much energy around behind that round.
Yeah.
So as the round enters, it's you remember that movie, The Matrix?
Yeah.
So that wobble coming off the round is the round breaking the sound barrier. So all that energy goes somewhere. So as it enters the body, as it exits, that's basically a shock wave that almost liquefies everything internally. So if it doesn't kill you right away, you're just suffering.
Yeah, man. That's pretty brutal shit. I've never heard it described that way, Is that, do you remember how many shots between the two of you guys took on live targets?
I took 12 shots.
Holy shit.
Now, I don't know if I hit everybody, but I took 12 shots.
And so 12 separate targets.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your partner?
At least that amount.
Yeah.
Because we were busy.
Yeah.
But it happens really, I guess, over the course of an hour or two.
Yeah.
And then the worst part of it was, they know where you are, and extract is coming. So you hear the Bradley's coming. And on my particular one, they had put an ID on our exits. Because, at the end of the day, they know where we are.
Yeah.
Because we kick out a family and, hey, the Americans are up in my apartment. So they know where we are. And we'd been on those targets for so long that they knew we only had a couple of egress routes. So they just IED'd where the Bradley would show up. And we heard this huge explosion right outside the door. And we're getting into the Bradleys, and they're pulling off two other young guys. And those kids were just getting ready to go home. And they were like, hey, boss, can we go out and just go on target? And their dream was to get out on target.
Man. And it killed them?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. They're all
fucked up, yeah.
Of the 12 shots that you took, how many did your spotter say they were good shots?
6.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's wild. Did you guys take any fire from the position that you were at?
No, because the way sound works in a city, you can't really tell where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And then sniper teams were all over the city taking shots. So if you're not taking cover, you don't know where it's coming. It's coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
So the human eye really, even though we're arboreal by nature, we just tend to look
arboreal
from the trees,
primates.
So that's why when we're in trouble, we go vertical, because that old part of our brain, like, go up into a tree because you're a primate.
Wow. Fucking learn something new every day.
I've been to college 3 times, Mike.
Oh, that's good stuff. You guys kicked the family out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense to keep them there?
Mm-hmm.
Did you start doing that afterwards, or you just...
We were supporting the Army.
And that was their rule?
That was their rule, yep. Kick them out.
I mean, that seems stupid.
Yeah. And now, I don't know if they had handlers, but they just weren't in their own department.
Yeah.
So that part, I don't know. Once they kicked them out, we got into a sniper hide, and they really had a whole team dedicated to us taking shots.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd be like, have a seat, make yourself at home. You are home. How about a ham slice MRE?
Yeah,
got you
ham.
covered. Fucking ham slice. Man.
But we were always respectful to their homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any resistance from any of them? Were any of them like, fuck you and fight back at all? Or were they
Well,
all just...
I mean, by the time we had gotten there, no, probably at the beginning of the war, probably so. But, it's either like, all right, they're going to be here all day, and then we get our shit back.
Yeah.
So it's either fight and possibly die, or...
Yeah. They just kind of knew the drill.
Yeah.
Wow. Was that the kind of the highlight in terms of combat activity of that deployment?
Of that deployment, yeah. Yeah.
So you come home. Was there, from a kind of a takeaway standpoint, were there any big takeaways for you as a now officer in a combat environment in a platoon? Like, was that something you even thought about to take into the next one, or was it just turn and burn and get ready for the next?
No. So I went over. So the officer tracks are a lot different. So I had to do a diversified tour. So that's when I went over to Boat Team 20. But I took all the lessons learned, because the cool thing about enlisted guys, they're going to tell you what you're doing right and wrong.
Yeah. So
I just had a book of, hey, I don't do that again, because I know my next things, I'm going to be an OIC, so I can't make these same mistakes twice. So I really unsolicited advice, and and I would, as the relationships grew and trust grew, I'd be like, hey man, what can I do better here? Yeah. And they would tell me. Yeah. And usually great advice.
Any brutal honesty?
They did tell me I was black.
You're like, what? Reminds me of the Dave Chappelle KKK leader.
That's what I was thinking. What?
The fuck are you talking about? Well, yeah, when you mentioned a diversification tour, I was like, doesn't being black just count as that?
Kinda, it should.
Oh man, that well, so I mean, to me that seems kind of counterproductive if you're trying to, groom officers to be leaders, to have them do that and then take them out of that environment. Like, what's the thought process?
Because as a leader of the community, you have to not only know the tactical side of running and gunning. Hey, we also have direct support, which is the SBT guys.
Yeah.
So it helps to know what their mission is, how they incorporate themselves into the NSW mission, and it diversifies you. And then a really good one would be go to the SDV and see what that underwater submersible does.
Yeah, I guess that
so.
Makes
And
sense.
it rounds you out, so you're not only this one-dimensional leader of the community.
Well, yeah, because I guess no different than like, coming to America. Like, I'm washing lettuce, then I'm on fries. Next thing you know, I'm assistant manager. But I mean, the reality is, like, especially as an officer, like, if you have no idea what it's like to be at a boat team, how are you going to use those guys properly when you're at a higher level? So I get that.
Yeah. So it's rounding out your education.
Yeah.
Which it was very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Because after September 11th, we had a boat team dead attached to us. Those guys were awesome.
Yeah.
And had such a great time. I was like, if I have to go, you can either go sit in a jock somewhere and just be a jock monkey somewhere, or you can go to the boat team and figure out what your leadership style is and see if it still works.
Yeah.
And those guys are great.
Yeah.
They really were.
How long were you there for?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And did you deploy with them?
Yeah, deployed to PACOM. And there was a little skirmish going on in the Philippines.
Down south?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mindanao.
Yep.
What, like Zamboanga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you mix it up in there or what?
Yeah.
No
we
shit.
were working with OGA down there.
Well, fuck, tell us about that.
All right. So we're down in Mindanao, Holo Island area, and all of a sudden we meet Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith says, hey, we're going to need your boats to support this other op that you can't take pictures of. They have a boat that you can't take pictures of. And where you're staging is a different platform than what it looks like. We're like, okay, that sounds weird.
I'm in, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. So so they're hunting bad guys, kind of terrorist cells out of Holo Island. And all of a sudden we have all these assets and we have all these communication specialists and all this weird stuff. And what struck me as, we have this long 80-page mission debriefing or whatever, all the slides and actions on and all this stuff. He goes to a whiteboard and says, okay, here's the target, here's you, here's our asset, here's our frequencies to call, and we need to start at this time and end at this time. And I'm like, am I getting punked or something? Where's the rest of it? He's like, yeah,
you come up with it.
Yeah. It's like, you guys are professionals.
Yeah.
Here's the shell of the mission and it's going to change. So, here's where you need to be. Here's who you need to talk to. And here's the end result. Wow. Everything else in there is fluid. So just be up on comms.
Wow.
So they launched their indigenous force to catch a bad guy. And, they knew that the person they were hunting, the person they were getting information from was related to this guy. So they were always missing this guy. Yeah. So the mission wasn't to actually catch the bad guy. It was to catch the mole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
Yeah.
Did you guys play a big role in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk about what you did? Or
well, we inserted and we provided cover for the indigenous force to go into work.
Okay.
And then we were kind of their comm asset. Mm-hmm. But when the guy squirted, we had to go to the other side of the island and be a blocking force.
Did you guys mix it up with any of the bad dudes or?
No, we weren't allowed to engage,
okay.
But we were allowed to be a blocking force. And if we saw them escaping on a boat, we could chase them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It all went off without a hitch for the most part? Or?
Well, we saw the target, and we were on comms, and we could see the phase lines of it. So they're like, hey, he's on this part of the island. We have positive ID, all the proof of life stuff. And like, hey, he's here right now. So we're going right now. And we launched, and we had UAVs up in the air.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So it was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We didn't catch the guy, but they did find out who the mole was.
Yeah.
I think.
That's wild.
But they could only tell us so much.
Yeah.
But it was not what I expected.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get cut away to Holo Island
No doubt.
with Mr. Smith.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So 2 years there. I mean, I guess, over the course of your career, you held several different leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
Was there one in particular that felt like it was the best fit, and were there any that you felt like a fish out of water?
The best tour I had was the boat team tour.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. But my best fit was my OIC platoon.
Which was after that.
Because I got to figure out my leadership style a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I had more lessons learned to pull from.
Yeah.
So then, and I figured out the separation thing a lot better. But what I got the most out of was I just genuinely loved the guys that I worked for, who worked for me.
Yeah.
They were just awesome guys.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. They were the misfits of the team because they were putting a troop together.
Yeah.
And they needed bodies. So who are you going to get rid of? The people you don't need or want, the problem children.
Yeah.
So I got all the problem children. And what I did was like, look, man, I don't care what your past was like. This is what we're doing. And it took me a while to figure out who was the ringleader, who was part of the E5 Mafia running the show, and how their leadership styles were and how individually talented they were, and then just put them in the right spots.
Yeah.
And then it's to put them in the right spots so they would thrive and just do team guy stuff. Where I was most out of water was like the no kidding officer stuff, like ops officer, and then, working at SOCUR and stuff like that. I was a fish out of water because it was no longer tactical anymore.
It's all logistics.
It's all logistics and strategic level. What does the general think? And what is this? What does the battlefield look like?
Yeah. Is there a D, nobody gives a shit, Bob, answer to that?
I hate that, Bob Barker.
Oh, so good, man. So the collection of Misfits was your OIC back at Team 8?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And with that platoon, you went to Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, so we split up. So we still had our obligations in UCOM that we had to cover, and then we sent guys to Iraq and Afghanistan, and then we would switch them off from the guys who were in Iraq would then go to Afghanistan, and I was able to manage for 3 months of it, and then I went to Afghanistan for the last 3 months.
Oh, okay, so the first 3 in Iraq, the second 3 in Afghanistan.
No, the first 3 I was covering UCOM.
Oh, okay.
And then I would send my AOICs out to get combat experience.
Oh, okay.
And then, because I knew on the second half of it, I'd be going to Afghanistan. So it's like, they need to get the experience. So let's get them in there. And
was the platoon split in half numbers-wise that way, where half of you guys were in Europe, or was it?
About a third.
Okay.
So a third in Europe, a third in Iraq, a third in Afghanistan.
Wow. So you spent the first half in Europe and then the second half in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So varsity squad, basically, your entire SEAL career now, you're at the pinnacle of, you're an officer in charge in a combat environment with a platoon of team guys, or almost a full platoon. Walk us through that deployment.
So we started off, like I said, the getting guys experience, because back in 2010, we could kind of see the writing on the wall that things are going to start slowing down. And I really wanted to get the junior guys combat experience. So we divvied up the guys and said, you're going to Afghanistan, you're going here. And then I had a group of guys who would do good on exercises, and we could put them in, we could plug them in later. So I would get reports from downrange, and the guys were doing great, and they were learning a lot of stuff. So the thing was, halfway through, as they were doing the handoff, they would debrief each other and say, hey, here's what to expect, because the theaters are completely different.
Yeah.
And I was just watching my guys, because it took them from infancy, basically, the new guys especially, to where they're full-fledged war fighters and capable. and confident.
Yeah.
And it was cool to watch them grow in that way. And then I was also learning how to filter what they didn't need to know, like from the CO or the CMC or whoever. I could be that filter to feed them what they need to know to continue to thrive as team guys, but not all the dumb shit that is upper leadership.
Yeah.
And they had no clue sometimes, which looking back on it, I probably should have let them know a little bit of what that looked like, but I just wanted them to be good team guys.
Yeah.
And they'll get that education somewhere else. I just wanted them to thrive, because taking them from knowing that they were put into that troop because they were the problem children to finding out and highlighting what their strengths and weaknesses were, plugging them into the right spot to where on target, we may have been hated by leadership, but on the X, nobody did it better than our platoon did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was that something where the Team 8 leadership sat you down before and said, hey, we're giving you the fucking problem child?
No,
problem children? Or
going through SQ2, you remember Chris Musselman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mus was my XO.
Oh, okay.
And he kind of told me what was going on. And I knew Chris enough to where I could say, boss, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was not complaining, but I was like, Chris, come on, what are we doing? And he's like, Mark, I wouldn't put you in this position if I didn't trust you.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put you in this position if you couldn't do it. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
So once I had his confidence and he had a plan, and it wasn't just because I thought it would be, this is where OIC is go to die. You get the problem children, and then just
it's
you're a problem.
setting you up for failure. Yeah.
But he's like, no, you're one of the older.
Yeah.
And you're prior enlisted.
When he told you that, you could have hit him with the, when you think of garbage, think of Hakeem. How many fucking Coming to America one-lines can we put in one episode? Oh, man. What's he doing? Is he still in?
Who, Eddie Murphy?
Yeah. What the fuck's he up to? Your boy's with him, right?
No, he ended up getting out. I don't know why, but it was to the point where he's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I got you.
And he family guy, and he was, he was just a good family guy. And he got to the point where I think he saw the writing on the wall and was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And
yeah, such a good dude.
He was.
Hell of an athlete, too, man. I remember him being a fucking stud in training, but
baseball player.
Yeah.
At the academy.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Damn, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Real good guy.
Yeah.
Didn't feel pain like the rest of us.
Yeah, no shit. Or was just way better at hiding it. So when you actually end up showing up in Afghanistan, now your guys have been there for a little while, right? Kind of firing on all cylinders. What kind of stuff were you guys doing there?
So we were trying, it was in the winter time, so the fighting season was kind of over, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. We were on Camp Wolverine, where they had all the air assets, the Apaches, and a couple 47s, because we were working with the Lithuanians, and supporting the soft mission, but embedded with conventional 10th Cav, I think it was. So, but the CO of the base was really bought into the mission, and I was trying to figure out how do we incorporate during the non-fighting season to get the guys who were in Afghanistan some time on target. So I would call to other OICs throughout the country and say, hey, do you have a spot for two guys? We were doing the FID mission with the Liths, so I could farm out a couple guys for a couple weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody had a need, hey, you need 2 bodies, you need 3 bodies. I have 3 that need to get some combat experience.
Yeah.
And I was just managing the Lithuanians, and because they were tons of bravado.
Yeah.
They had the SF model, and these guys were cutting through the wire because they didn't like the approval process. It was like, we're SF. Yeah. We can do what we want. I was like, yeah, I get it, but you can't piss off the CO because he's the one who approves you. And like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. So they'd repair the wire, and it was a big deal to have the wire cut. And then finally the skipper's like, Mark, fix it or you're not going out again.
Yeah.
I was like, boss, come on. He's like, nope.
Wow.
So finally they cut the wire, went out again, and they got into a tick, but nobody knew that they were out.
Jesus.
So we heard gunfire, and they didn't give us our frequencies or anything. So it could have gotten a lot worse.
Yeah.
So they run back on the base, and the skipper grounds them.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you guys are done.
And was the skipper at that point the Naval Special Warfare?
No, he was an Army colonel. He was a pilot.
Oh, okay.
Real good guy, though. He had given them the longest leash of all time.
Yeah.
So finally, he's like, Mark, fix it.
Yeah.
So finally, I went to the list. I was like, do you guys understand what's happening? And they finally got us like, you guys could have gotten yourselves killed because we don't know. We're heavily supported.
Yeah.
And you have an entire base that's willing to support you, but you just keep pissing people off.
Yeah.
So I had a really great relationship with the leadership. And finally, once they weren't going to get it until shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And then once they got it, they're like, okay, I'll listen now.
Yeah. I gotcha.
And and for me, that was the hardest deployment because I got in country. We were working really hard and trying to get missions. And I was embedding myself with the indigenous guys just to kind of go see what that, or not the indigenous, but the conventional Army guys. And we were going out to villages, and we would take EOD guys out and do some specialized stuff.
Yeah.
But as a reward, the skipper said, hey, helicopter went down up in the mountains. Team 4 guys doing a turnover. Bird went down. People died. We need to go up and destroy the aircraft, but we also need to get the classified stuff burned up. And he's like, it's going to be a firefight up there. Go have a good time. I was like, hey, boss, I'm scheduled to leave in like 3 days. He's like, yeah, you'll be fine. So we prep and we fly up to the target, and there's the helicopter, just shell, and we just start dismantling it. And
it hadn't been rat fucked already?
It had been, but the initial, they got the initial bad stuff off of it, or crypto and stuff off of it.
Yeah.
But there was still some stuff that they didn't want the enemy to have.
Right.
So they had kept a kind of a guard up there. But it was time to go. So we were going to burn it up, and then we were going to get it out of there. But the skipper knew that it was going to be bad up there.
Yeah.
So we had Apaches flying up there, and I'm sitting there talking with the second lieutenant Army guy, and all of a sudden these little dust devils start popping up. And we both kind of look at each other like, oh, we're getting shot at. And there was no So I don't know where the fire was coming from. We couldn't see anything, but I mean, he was on target. He was just short.
Yeah. Damn.
So the conventional guys just kind of spread out and stayed low. I stopped and looked around, and as a sniper, I'm like, I need to get to high ground and see what's going on. So I get up to high ground, had a radio, and was talking with the conventional captain, and was kind of not calling in CAS, but just saw where the enemy was coming in from. And I put eyes on, and the Apaches came in and just absolutely laid waste.
Wow.
And then we called for an extract. Under fire, 47s came in, and like he put the ass of the helicopter, but the front of it was still up in the air.
Yeah.
And dudes are just coming in, and you hear rounds plinking off of the bird.
Yeah.
And they were TF-160 guys.
Dude, those guys are badass.
Yeah. And they weren't leaving until they had everybody.
Yeah.
And we got everybody out, and I was just like, that was awesome. And then,
what a trip.
Yeah. And then 24 hours later, I was on a plane.
Damn.
Heading home.
Did you guys return fire at all, or was it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So they were returning fire, just the Army guys were returning fire. And then the helos had spotted where they were coming from. And so they just lit up the whole mountainside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just
and
to watch.
Went quiet?
Yeah. And then it went quiet, and then when the helo came in, it lit up again.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We never knew where they were.
Yeah.
But we saw where the Apaches were targeting.
Man.
And those little birds,
yeah,
they're bad
motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Was that kind of the standout op for you personally on that deployment, as far as memorable?
Yeah, because I got to. The skipper brought me in on, hey, here's why he taught me the why of the battle space.
Yeah.
So here's why we do the things the way we do. Here's why you have to communicate the way you do. And obviously I don't have to tell you guys about communication, but we have partner forces, and here's what the overall picture of the supporting forces looks like.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And then as a reward, he's like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go get some.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of your career, when you went back from that, did you get out fairly soon after that?
No, that was in 2010. I ended up getting out in 2016.
Okay. What was the last 6 years like?
I found out what it's like to have bad leadership.
That was the SOC year and like the logistics.
No,
yeah,
it was ops at 20.
Yeah.
And then SOC year, a portion of SOC year, and then finally I was just like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. So all administrative stuff, basically.
Yeah, but so coming back from Afghanistan, I couldn't learn new stuff. For some reason, the TBIs from football or from the years in the teams, I could learn new team guy stuff because that was, we had the framework for that. Now you're just kind of adding small pieces to it.
Yeah.
But when I went over to the operation side, my organization wasn't good enough, and then I just couldn't learn new stuff.
Wow.
And then to have poor leadership on top of that.
Just like, fuck this.
Yeah, because I was begging. I was like, hey, I understand a little bit. Just take me a week and just kind of walk me through it and tell me the why.
Yeah.
And as poor leaders do, it was like, oh, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have 2 hours a day for a week to kind of walk me through it.
Yeah.
For the next 2 years of my tour.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. And, so that was, and that was the first time I experienced bias on a level that was malicious.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
So it was, the guy clearly did not like people who were not white.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a SEAL leader?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Do you want to call him out?
Nah. I do, but nah.
No, we're not gonna.
No, because
Like, what was the clear? I mean, I get it, but what was the clearest example of that taking place where it really hit you?
it was, so if you don't like somebody's, if you're a racist or whatever, or you're biased, I can't quantify that. I don't know what that looks like. It's like, you don't like 20% of black people, or what does that mean? I can't quantify. I don't like a minority group. Okay. Now, if you have I don't like you and I have the intent to do wrong by you, then okay, that's a problem. But then if you have intent and the bias, and then you have the ability to execute, those are, if they meet those three, then I'll say I was racially profiled or targeted.
Yeah. What was the third part of that like, what did he do to?
Well, he passed on to the new commanding officer. It's like, yeah, Mark sucks. And so the new skipper, instead of doing due diligence, say, what's the why? Are you a poor leader or what? So we had this incident to where we had a climate survey. And one of the questions was, hey, have you suffered any racial incidents? I was like, I normally wouldn't say anything, but since you're asking, yeah. So I wrote the situation down, and they're not anonymous, by the way.
It would be hard to be anonymous, I suppose, in that scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't malicious, but I was just like, yeah, well, this is what happened.
Yeah. Well,
subsequently, a lot of other stuff had happened with this commander, and one of the sailors had called and said, hey, this guy's all screwed up. So when the investigation swarmed in,
there were multiple accounts.
Yeah. It should, like, jail time should have happened.
Wow. Man.
So instead of them saying, maybe he's done something else that causes, it must have been Mark because he said there was racial stuff. And in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to say shit because I got to work here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bad enough to where it wasn't detrimental. You just asked, so I answered a question.
Yeah.
And instead of just doing some due diligence, then it just spiraled to where the oncoming CO, Dennis, literally took my entire staff away from me.
Really?
And there was a gentleman named H, and he'd been there forever. He was a civilian ops guy, but he was a reservist Master Chief. And he was the continuity. And slowly, hey, where did Chief so-and-so go? Oh, he got reassigned. And at the end, and he took H away from me, put him in a separate office, and wouldn't let me talk with him. Like, no shit. And then finally he's like, oh, well, Mark, you're not cutting it. And I look around, I was like, boss, I can't run ops by myself. It's like, well, you're not cutting it.
So, I mean, to me, it sounds like it was multiple people at the top then, right? It wasn't just one guy.
No, it was a CO, XO.
And the oncoming.
And the oncoming.
All three of them were kind of in cahoots the same fucking way?
Yeah, so that's the way the officer thing kind of works there. The metrics are different.
Yeah.
So they're all clawing for very few coveted spots as being a commanding officer.
Yeah.
So when you get your commission, your job is to become a commanding officer.
Yeah.
Just like in the teams, you want to be a chief or senior chief. Master Chief, if at all possible, but
yeah.
And then all that just kind of carried over, and then the culmination of it was, I had my struggles, I figured it out, and then had everything taken away. Went over to Sakior, the skipper called over to the commander over there. His name's Neil, and he's like, "Oh, Mark's all fucked up." So, so had that happen with Neil. And then came back and said, hey, skipper, this is not really an accurate portrayal of how my capability. And he said, well, how about this? How about you go to your next assignment here, kick ass, and then if you kick ass and do a great job, then I'll go back and wipe out your old fit rep and give you a new one and you're all set. And I called our detailer, Margaret, and said, hey, Margaret, here's what's happening. Here's what Neil said. She's like, honey, put it in writing. Get him to send an email confirming that. And I was like, come on, it's Neil. He's a stand-up guy, kind of a pillar of the community. She's like, honey, I'm telling you.
She called you honey twice?
Twice. I mean, Mike,
fucking
come on.
serious.
Look what I bring to the table,
chocolate.
baby.
God, it's another one. What is it with fucking coming to America? Man.
So she told me, like, make sure you get it in writing.
Yeah.
So the time comes, I come back to get my fit rep. My new bosses were like, I don't know what was said about this guy, but he's working great in our shop. And I go back to Neil and say, hey, boss, can we go back and redo the fit rep? He's like, I don't remember saying that.
So you didn't get it in writing? Fuck, man.
Because I was like,
no,
the guy gave me his word.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it before we got on camera.
Yeah.
I went through the same thing, nothing to do with race, but yeah, getting completely fucking steamrolled and same kind of thing. Man, that's fucking horrible. So for you, was that kind of the nail in the coffin of saying, okay, well, fuck this, I'm getting out? Or did you try to from a retribution standpoint, do anything about it?
No. So, I mean, I saw the writing on the wall. Once they can target your fit reps to where you'll never get promoted.
Go further.
Yeah. So I was just like, well, I'm going to be 44. I'm more marketable at 44 than 54.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, it's time to retire. And my commander at Group 4, former damn that guy, awesome guy.
Yeah.
Genuinely good guy. I think is an exceptional leader. And, had a great tour, a final tour.
Yeah.
And then my life changed when I went to a fundraiser in New York City that led to my USC.
Oh, yeah.
My USC time.
Yeah. So before we get into that, two things I get, or actually a few questions prior to that. I guess from the issues that happened with those three guys, like what was the biggest indicator that race was the driving component, I guess? I mean, because it seems like the other two components seem pretty cut and dry. What was it about what they did that stood out, that where it was a race thing from from your standpoint?
A lot of you people are like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. And I stood outside of his office and heard some of the stuff. I was supposed to be gone.
Yeah.
And I was just getting ready to go into his office, and some slurs were thrown out there.
Oh,
and
shit.
Yeah.
Man.
And then they left a black hole outside of my office.
Really?
I'm like, do you guys know what that means? And one of the guys was genuinely ignorant. It's like, no, what does that mean? And I think it's because in the history of NSW, we've never had a black person at a really high level that says, hey, this is what this means. Because I was one of 4 black officers and one of 26 SEALs, black SEAls.
No shit?
Yeah.
Like to this day?
Well, when I was in.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So, but in saying that, the community was awesome.
Yeah.
And 99% of the guys were just like you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I don't care what color you are. You're a good team guy. You're a good team guy.
Yeah.
That was, if it was 100 team guys that represented, 98 are awesome.
Yeah.
1 guy's suspect, and then 1 guy is like, stay away from that motherfucker.
Yeah. Man, that's fucking terrible to hear, man. Especially at that level, it's like, those dudes are supposed to be like at the pinnacle of leadership, Did you get out as a lieutenant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious, going from, and I meant to ask this earlier, but going from a Mustang going from a enlisted to an officer, did you ever work with any guys as an officer that you worked with as an enlisted guy?
I put, excuse me, when I was at Team 8, I put like half the guys through sniper school.
As enlisted?
As enlisted.
Oh man, that's got to be weird.
Yeah.
Was it weird?
It was, but they were such professionals about it.
Yeah.
And
did you guys fuck with each other at least a little bit? Like, hey, fucking.
Yeah, I was like, where's your salute, son? You will call me
you
sir.
will
at all
stand the
times.
fuck up when I walk in this room. That's awesome. That's good shit. Resilience is arguably the biggest trait for becoming a SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about the caliber of guys, like it's all well above average in pretty much every department, but there are always weaknesses within each guy. And the bottom line is like you're going to have to be incredibly like abnormally resilient to make it through training. Is there a specific instance or situation from your recollection, looking back on your entire career, where resilience played the biggest role in you getting through something?
Yes. So of 180 days that you're going to have at BUD/S, you're going to have a hard time. And I think it's individual resilience, but collectively, when you're surrounded by a bunch of resilient guys, I think it just kind of fortifies you a little bit more. So it just heightens your resilience. So one time, I was just having a bad day running, and I wasn't smiling that day, and Jonas Kelsall.
Oh, wow.
Said, Mark, are you okay? I'm like, Jonas, bro, I'm hurting today. He's like, all right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to run behind me, and I'm going to step in such a way that I'm going to pack down the sand for you, and you're just going to run to my footsteps. He's like, don't look up, just look down at my feet. He was 18 years old at the time. And I said, you know what? Okay. And survived that run. It was the worst run I've ever done. And I was a talented runner.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have it that day, and he knew it. And he just stepped up and said, hey, you're having a bad day, so let me take care of you.
Damn, as an 18-year-old.
18-year-old.
Wow.
Yep.
And rest in peace, Jonas,
rest in
right?
peace, yeah. But
Yeah.
then you turn around, and one day Ryan Dick's not having a good day.
Yeah.
I turn around and say, hey, Ryan,
Follow me.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. That's cool. To me, like there's a leadership component to that I honestly don't think can be taught. I really think now you may be able to grow into that through experiences, but I think it's one of those things that people either just kind of have or they don't to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Having been an enlisted guy and also an officer, what do you think the most critical leadership quality is for a SEAL officer?
I think it's consistency. And I say that because even if you're having a bad day, the guys have to know what they're going to expect from you. You have to, what separates Tom Brady from any other quarterback, he's just consistently exceptional.
Yeah.
Snow, rain, indoors, outdoors. He's just Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Or LeBron, or anybody who's exceptional. And I think the really great leaders figured that out early on.
Yeah.
And I think some of our not so great leaders don't figure that out.
Yeah.
And it's up and down, and you don't know what you're going to get. Because what I found out was, I heard this old saying that once the people that you lead stop coming to you with their problems, then you failed as a leader.
Yeah.
And so up to the first day I showed up, because they have their team life, but they have a life outside of work.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just need some guidance. And if they walk up to you and say, hey boss, I'm having problems in my marriage, or I'm having problems financially, or I can't figure this thing out in training, it's like, hey man,
yeah,
let's figure this out and get you through it.
Yeah.
And to the last day, the guys were coming to me with their problems, which I thought was a victory.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I mean, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, as stressful and overwhelming, I think, sometimes as it is to be dependent on by a lot of people, like there's a certain level of almost necessity, I think, for AA personality men that need people to depend on them to feel like they have a purpose, and man, that's awesome.
Yeah. Mike, that was my favorite part.
Yeah.
When I said open door policy, I meant it. And when the guys would show up and it's like, hey boss, I would happily drop everything. Like, hey, what you got?
Yeah.
And I wanted to help, and I wanted them to thrive.
Yeah. Without sharing too much info, what's the weirdest fucking, hey, I need help with X scenario? Do any stand out as being like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, first, let me call you a fucking bonehead.
It was in sniper school, and unfortunately, the guy passed away. But it was one of those things like, hey, how would I take this shot and not get caught?
Like, don't ask that.
Yeah, I was like, how do I shoot through because we were doing what's called a medium shoot, where you shoot through a window or a door or something. It's like, so how do I shoot through a window? What's the best round to shoot through a window? and he was getting very specific, double pane glass. I was like, are you shooting at an angle, or are you shooting? Because I kind of figured out where he was going.
Yeah.
Like, are you shooting from an angle, or are you shooting on the ground, or are you driving by in a car? So
fucking DC sniper over here.
Yeah, I let the Master Chief know. I was like, hey,
So.
yeah. Let's
Yeah.
not have him do the medium shoot. I don't think he needs to know how to
No more
do
training for that one. Man. Big shout out to the Patreon members for A, your support, and B, your questions. Got a couple in relation to your SEAL career on active duty. Dimitri Pardina asks, I hate to bring race into anything, but I've been told on multiple occasions that black men have to work much harder in the special operations community than anybody else. My question is there any validity to that claim? And if so, can he share a time where he struggled with some form of racism within the teams and how he overcame those situations? Obviously, you kind of already shared that, the second part, but I guess the first part of having to work harder within the community, do you think that that's accurate?
I think so. It's a multi-layered question or answer, because I think when you're going through BUDS, it's very binary. It's survival.
Yeah.
And race really didn't come into it. Now, to answer the second part of his question about working harder, I always felt that, or I always thought that I was showing up with 2 strikes out of 3, and that I couldn't make a mistake because that third strike is I'm done.
Yeah.
So I had to personally make sure that my presentation was non-threatening. I wasn't overly loud. I couldn't behave like my counterparts. Sometimes they would say stuff to the leadership, and I was like, there's no way he's got his job afterwards. Or one guy went UA in Iraq, just vanished, and they found him in Fallujah.
Who, a team guy?
Uh-huh.
He's
He's just like, I don't want to be in the jock anymore. I'm going to Fallujah.
No shit.
Yeah, just bounced. General Order Number 1, son.
Yeah.
Right? And he came back and, hey, he's fine. If I would have done, I know if I would have done that shit, I was on the next thing smoking home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's real or imagined, just like when the stress you put yourself through, buds, is usually self-induced.
Yeah, or a lot of it.
Yeah. So, I can't tell you if it was you actually have to work harder or you just think you have to work harder.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a great perspective, and I would say to add, it's something that gets mentioned often in a lot of aspects of life. This group, and it's not even just specific to to the military or to any one specific race for that matter. I mean, in a lot of different industries, that gets mentioned. And the one thing, that I'm curious about, kind of a two-part to it, I guess. Number one is to that, is it perceived or is it real? Is do you feel like there is a component of certain stereotypes and concerns being propagated unnecessarily? An example would be, let's say you're talking to your son as he's getting his license, and you say, hey, just so you know, like if you get pulled over, like you're having that kind of talk with him. Like, is there an element of that is actually counterproductive in that now you're saying like, hey, you're going to be panicked, or do you think that it's actually necessary and it's worth having that talk?
Well, with the situation you just talked about, when I was growing up, my grandfather and dad sat me down my dad sat me down right when I got my driver's license. He's like, okay, son, if you ever get pulled over, roll the window down and stick your hands out so the police officer knows that you are not armed, and keep them out and don't say a word. Be very cooperative. And he's like, because if you get it wrong, they're going to shoot you. Was that accurate? I don't know, but I got it at such a young age that was reality.
Yeah.
So I got pulled over one time. I don't remember what year it was. I reverted back to a kid. I rolled the window down, stuck my hands out.
Did he come up and be like, the fuck are you doing? Or was he?
Well, he said, thank you.
Yeah.
And then it was just a normal traffic stop.
Yeah.
But the initial was like, I don't want to get shot. The officer's white. I'm black man driving a BMW. Let me roll the window down and make sure I make it home to my 4 kids.
Yeah.
Now, is it a little bit different? I think with body-worn cameras now, it's a little bit different. But, you have people who have that bias or fear that no matter who, if they're a black billionaire or a black kid from low income, they're just equally dangerous. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to have people who have that bias, or that's what their experience was. Now, a question I often ask is, in the teams or anywhere I've ever been, like let's take the teams for example. It's 98% white. Mm-hmm. More fucked up team guys that are white than any of us are black.
Yeah.
But as soon as I made a mistake or thought I made a mistake, I assumed that, some people were verbal, some people were very vocal. It was rare, but some people were very vocal. It's like, I knew it. Or you would hear somebody have a safety violation and the response was very elevated, whereas opposed to somebody else who had the same safety violation is like, okay, we'll just take his gun away for a day and put him back in.
Yeah.
So it was very different, and it's because that the teams are a slice of America. You have rich, you have poor, you have people who are awesome, and you have people who just have bias.
Yeah.
Or racist. But I hate saying racist because that stops the conversation. If you and I are talking and I say, Mike, you're a racist, the conversation's over because you're going to defend yourself. I'm not a racist, and you're going to explain why. So because language matters, it's like, well, it's bias.
Yeah.
And I can change bias.
Yeah.
And I can work with somebody who's biased, and I have before.
Yeah.
And I'm just willing to give everybody a clean shot because my LPO in one of my platoons, I showed up as an ensign, and first thing he said is like, why did we get the black officer?
He said that?
Like,
Like he wasn't fucking with you?
Not at all.
No shit.
ended up being friends with him.
Yeah.
But finally.
Did you ever ask him about it later on?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He's like, he said, "Oh yeah, I just don't like black people." I was like, "Okay, why? Why not?"
No way he said that.
Yeah.
No shit.
But I appreciated that because I know where I stand with that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not guessing with that guy. And finally, we had a conversation. I was like, "You always say you don't know. Just what happened?" He's like, "That's just the way I was raised. My father, who was a team guy, said this about black people. So, and I'd never worked with a black person until you, and now we're friends."
Yeah. So did that course of your guys' relationship change his bias?
I think so, because he had something happen later on that I had to help him with as a civilian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And he came to you for help?
Well, I was assigned.
Oh.
I was assigned. And after we cleared everything up, genuinely a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm willing to have those conversations. So I didn't call him a racist or whatever. I was like, well, what's the why?
Yeah.
And once he explained it to me, it's like, well, okay. Is that what you're experiencing now with you and I?
Yeah.
He's like, well, no. I was like, well, let's fix it then.
Yeah.
And he was willing to fix it. And I thought we had a really good relationship. And if he called me up today, I'd be happy. And I have since talked to him. He ended up being a good guy.
Yeah.
But I found that refreshing. Is kind of counterintuitive that once I was like, I know where I stand with you. And I think that once we talk, then what you think is the issue is really not the issue.
Yeah.
And we worked together for 2 years and like, okay, I got that one wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, well, just
Realize.
pay it forward.
Yeah.
And don't judge a book by its cover, because you know,
yeah,
90% the people you know who are screwed up look like you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, that makes sense.
And then you threw a cracker in just to lighten the mood.
But I don't get defensive about it.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah. So I think, there's obviously a lot of heated discussions, I will say, just in this country in general, whether it's media narratives or kitchen table, diner discussion, whatever, where something like that, hey, whether it's, hey, you don't know what it's like to be a black man in America, or I have to work twice as hard, or whatever. One of the things that I think in starting a conversation with that, where it gets pushed back kind of immediately is really, I think, primarily in feeling a certain level of dismissiveness. And the example I would give is by saying, nobody likes to be assumed that they have it either easier or different or whatever, or that something that they're concerned about is irrelevant. Like we were talking about earlier with kids. What matters to them may be fucking insignificant to me, but to them, if you are dismissive of their feelings that way, like that's going to make them despise or resent you, or like it's going to further drive a wedge. And I think, one of the, like, I'd say not everybody, but almost everybody doesn't want to think that they have a bias or a racist angle or a prejudiced viewpoint on something. Whether or not they do is I'm not going to say it's irrelevant, but it's not the driving force in whether or not somebody gets into an argument about it. And so, if like to me, if I hear anybody, whether it's you or anybody, say, well, I had to work twice as hard as you, you don't know what it's like to be black in America. Like you're 100% right. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But that is a two-way street, right? Is that you don't know what it's like to be a white guy either.
Right.
Because there are some things, especially nowadays, and this isn't me fucking whining about being a white guy, because I'm not. However, I will say, like, right now in this country, in terms of having a grievance about something, I can tell you that the group of people that collectively the country gives the least amount of shit about something that you're complaining about is a white man. Like, they don't give a flying fuck if you don't like something, you know? And I'd take it a step further. Is there's a lot of it being met with good, like, I'm glad you don't fucking, or it's almost like a vitriol towards white men for having a complaint about anything, having a bitch about anything. It's like, well, you don't fuck, it's like whatever. And so to me, like when you start with saying like, I had it worse than you, it's like, well, how do you know how bad I had it? You don't, and so to me, I think that's step one. But again, only being able to speak as a straight white guy.
That's cis now, right?
Not for me, it isn't. For some, sure, you can say that. But so in that same vein, I can say, well, that offends me, calling me cisgendered, right? It's
right.
Like, again, that's a two-way street too. It's like, well, I don't want to be called a man. It's like, I don't want to be called cisgendered. So I'm offended by that. Like we can just say everything offends us, and now nobody can say anything. But the other part of it is, getting the getting pulled over scenario. One of the things I've thought of, because I've found myself in situations running dogs all over the country, driving through the night and stopping in places where I'm not the majority.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing. It's like, if somebody's like, well, I'll get pulled over just for driving through this area, or, if I'm in this neighborhood, I'll get the cops called on me if I'm, walking through and I have a hoodie on and whatever. And while, there's nothing about that I think is fair or just, I would also say, like, if you think that I could walk through the south side of Chicago looking the way I am right now by myself, like getting the cops called on me would be the absolute best case scenario. For sure, they're not going to call the police on me.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to survive that. So to me, like, that's not cool either, right?
I 100% agree.
So I think, on every side of the spectrum, a lot of times the discussion starts with a grievance that is dismissed, which at that point makes people defensive and not heard and resentful and irritated. And then the conversation fucking goes nowhere, and everybody just argues and thinks that they're right and everybody else is wrong and whatever. But
and when I showed up to Bud's or at Miami of Ohio or wherever I went, I was like, I always step back and never make assumptions. And the person who helped me out, probably the people who helped me out the most, don't look like me. But their arms are just as open, and they're like, "Hey, I just want to help."
Yeah,
there are more people in my 52 years that I've experienced than the opposite.
Yeah.
And to your point of white men just getting worked right now, I mean, you can literally say, "I don't like you because you're white, and you're not going to get this job because you're white." I mean,
that's fine.
Right, which is fucked up because it's not fine.
Yeah.
So I don't like the position that all white men or cisgender are bad, because that just has not been my experience, and I've met hundreds of thousands of people, and that's just not been my experience. Yeah. So my assumption is if that's not been my experience, then that's probably not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, to me, the biggest lesson that, I try to A, live by, and B, spread as a message for everybody, because we can, I think, generally all agree that communication is really the backbone of understanding and getting along, cooperating and moving forward as a society. So if everybody takes the position of like, hey, I know I don't like shit being assumed about me, so I'm not going to do that about anybody else. Right. Like if everybody just comes in with that and nothing else, like everybody is already way, way ahead of the fucking program. But it's like so many people have such a hard time doing that. It's like, well, I assume that because you check these 3 or 4 boxes that this, and this is true. To me, stereotypes are great for jokes,
right?
And that's about it,
right?
Like the rest of it, like shouldn't ever be given any serious credence, and you should give everybody a fair shake, no matter what. Like don't assume.
Yeah, and I think now, and I went back when we first started, just about how the country was when there were Jim Crow laws and there was systems in place, to keep specifically black people down. Those have all been erased, and I have every opportunity that you've had.
Yeah.
And my kids have even more opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very loud. I think it's a very loud minority that's screaming the loudest.
Mm-hmm.
Because my kids are biracial, and they don't have any of the problems that I had or biracial kids had when I was younger.
Even 20 years ago.
Even 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's. I think people dismiss the progress that we've made.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are living in either what they heard or what they assumed was true, as opposed to what's actually happening in the country right now. Because I can go anywhere and I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about places that I go. I may get a look or two. But as far as people not being kind or welcoming, I've yet to experience that.
Yeah.
It may happen, or it may happen to other people, but if, like you said, if you went to the south side of Chicago, it's going to get spicy for you.
Yeah.
You too.
Yeah. I mean, for that matter, there's plenty of neighborhoods 20 minutes from here that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of places in Dallas where I can tell you I'm not welcome.
Yeah.
You know, just walking around.
Yeah. But I'm so happy about where we are as far as relations go.
Yeah.
It's not the prevailing thought process now. It's like, it's kind of an anomaly that's just loud now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it gets highlighted, and then people assume that it's more predominant than it is.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's great stuff. Janine Lett asks, this is another one. What has his experience as a black man in an elite community been like? How did you deal with it? And would you encourage other young black men aspiring to join the community that you were a part of?
I would 100% encourage anybody to join the teams, but if you are a minority, then I would still say, yeah. It's an amazing community. You're going to get amazing training that you're not going to get less training because you're black. We're producing more fighters at the highest level.
Yeah.
And there's really no room for, hey, I'm not going to train this guy, because we're all going to a room and you don't want to be less trained than somebody else because of your skin color.
Yeah.
I would totally encourage it. And for the most part, for 18 of 20 years, I had race wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a thing. And I think it started off with Buds because, there weren't very many black students in Buds, but I was treated equally to everybody else. And I even had people who were like cheering for me, say, hey, Greene, you're doing good in Hell Week.
Yeah.
We want you to be a part of this community, so just keep your head up.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
20 years ago, and even now, it's got to be better now. But it's a very binary. You're going through a selection process to earn the right to be a SEAL. And once you've crossed that crucible, then the mission is to get you trained up to go downrange and do SEAL shit.
Yeah.
There's no real room. And I've played against people in college that, like I said, I'd never talked to again. But game day, they're blocking for me.
Yeah.
They're doing their job. They're doing their job the best of their ability. And they're not saying, well, I'm going to take I'm going to take this play off because he's black.
Yeah.
That shit just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, outside in your personal life, you could be something completely different. But when we're in that platoon or that group where we're training together, it's very binary. Just, can you do this job or not?
Mm-hmm. It's a meritocracy across the board. Yeah.
Yep. Which, and I think that's probably the best part of the SEAL community and the SF community as a whole, or the SOF community as a whole, is it's how are you at doing this job?
Yeah.
And like you said, I think it's one of the purest meritocracies left.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. I appreciate the perspective, man. I know a lot of times discussions like that get glossed over, or people stay away from them, on shows or interviews or whatever. But to me, they're important ones to have if we're interested in moving forward and progressing as a society.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've done 15 podcasts, and this is the only one that's
no shit.
Yeah,
really.
Yep.
Well, fucking A. Get some T-shirts made up.
Is there a Coming to America quote?
Got to be. Fuck, there's got to be. My mind's drawing a blank. I'll come up with
something. Yeah, let's come up with that.
All right, so life after the teams, in reading your story and, looking at the specifics of your book, like equally as impressive and even challenging probably from the sounds of it, but just event-filled, tons of fucking awesome accomplishments. Talk to us about the chance meeting at a dinner in New York that led to you going to USC. And just kind of your transition into being a civilian.
The guy I'm talking about, I absolutely adore this man.
Like in a gay way?
No.
Would you say if it was?
I would not.
See, so.
But I can guarantee you that it's not. But he's just a wonderful
soft hands,
guy.
Good kisser. 5 o'clock shadow that rubs you just the right way.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
Now we're going full Austin Powers.
So I was we were going to an event in New York, and I didn't want to go, but the person who sponsors the Los Angeles event sponsors the New York cocktail party the day before. So we're going to this venue, and I talked to this gentleman, and he said, "You need to meet Bill. You'd love Bill." And I'm like, okay. And so I meet Bill, and we just connected right away. And he's like, "Man, it's amazing. You're getting ready to retire. You were enlisted. You became an officer. You have your MBA. How do you feel?" And because I didn't have a filter and I didn't expect the question, I said, "I'm absolutely terrified." I was like, "I don't even know what I'm good at."
Yeah.
And I didn't. I couldn't say, "Well, I was a sniper, and when I'm applying for a job at IBM, I'm going to put I was a sniper." How does that translate?
Yeah.
Or I didn't even speak the language of civilian life anymore. Mm-hmm. And when he asked me, I was like, "Oh shit, I'm terrified, scared." And he looked at me like, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. So he gave me his business card and said, "How about you come out to LA and we're going to figure this out for you?" And I got angry because I said, "Well, why would you I'm a stranger." In my head, I was like, "Well, why would you even do something nice when you're a stranger?" And he's like, "I look forward to seeing you." I'm like, "Out of here, old man."
Whatever.
So I was applying for the FBI.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I made it through the entire process.
Damn.
And, but it was going slow.
Yeah.
And after a month, I was cleaning up my room, and all of a sudden I see this card. So I said, I'm gonna give him a call. So I gave him a call. I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, it's Marcus." And he was excited. He's like, "I've been waiting for you to call."
Yeah.
And I said, "Can we come out to LA?" He's like, "Yeah, come out I'm gonna send you over to my assistant, and we're gonna figure it all out." But he was excited, and so I flew out on Monday, and met with him, and he was just as excited. And he's like, "Well, we're gonna take you around to my staff, and we're just gonna figure out what works best for you." And I thought I was gonna wake up in a bathtub with one kidney removed. I was like, "You bastard, I knew it." Yeah. And so
you trick fucked me.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And by Wednesday, he's like, "Mark, you have a really great resume." I'm like, "About damn time you looked at it, it's Wednesday." and he said, "Well, I want to meet the person, read the resume, and see if they connect." And he's like, "You have a really strong resume, and the company he owns," he said, "I'd be doing you a disservice if I put you in my company. Like, but you're part of the family now, so if you want a job, you have it. But I would really be doing."
But you're better than that.
Yeah. So I was like, "All right, thanks for having me out," because I just wanted to see what it was like. And he showed me a great snapshot, and I was happily going home. And he said, "Hey, do you want to go to USC?" I was like, "Yeah." And so we drive to USC, and we get out, and Mike, he parks the car. It's graduation week. We take two steps out of the car, and I'm like, "Bill, this would be such a great place to work." And he didn't say anything. He kept walking, and we met with the dean of the business school, and we did a tour of campus. And I went home the next day. 2 weeks later, he called and said, "Hey, everything we talked about, forget about it. I got you 4 interviews. I got you 4 interviews at USC.
Damn.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I interviewing for? He's like, don't worry about it. Just don't suck. And he hung up the phone.
That's wild.
Yeah, he gave me a date and I showed up, and I wasn't going to take a job in LA. I was in Virginia, family's in Virginia, but I was just going to practice. So I'm just telling the interviewers just stories. It's a panel of interviewers and stuff. And I'm just telling team guy stories. And he said, hey, come on back once you're done. I was like, okay. So come back, and he said, what's it going to take to get you out of USC? And my dumb ass was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, and then it hit me. I was like, holy shit, this is a job offer.
Yeah.
And I threw out a number that I thought was astronomical. I was like, 150,000. And he's like, okay. I was like,
what
shit.
else? I mean 450,000.
Yeah, so then I start backtracking. I was like, well, my wife has a job as an audiologist.
Yeah. And
there are no jobs out here. I didn't research it. He called and said, hey, I got a guy I want to hire. Do you have these 4 positions at the USC Medical Center? I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Did you just not want to move to LA?
Well, I mean, nobody wants to move to LA.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, like an opportunity like that seems like.
Well, I didn't put it together because I just was like, the family's in Virginia, and that's where we're going to stay. We're going to find a job there. My mind wasn't even open to exploring new places.
Yeah.
So he then said, I was like, okay, we'll make sure your wife has a job. I was like, I have 3 kids and school's out here.
They need jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So he gets on the phone again and said, hey, I got a guy I want to hire. Do you have these 3 scholarships at the private school?
Man.
I'm like, God damn.
This dude's bending over backwards.
And he hang up the phone. He's like, are we good? I was like, yes, sir, we're good.
I mean, had you been talking to your wife about it this whole time? Or
no, I
were
didn't.
You just like, honey, guess what? We're moving.
No. So I came home and got the offer. I was like, you are not going to believe what happened. I was like, $150,000. They're going to find a job for you in private school for the kids. Let's go.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not leaving Virginia. I was like, there ain't shit here. I was like, why
the fuck you're not?
And so I called Bill and said, hey, Bill, I'm sorry. A wife's not going for it. He's like, how about this? How about I have her come out, pick any house in LA, in Malibu, on the beach, wherever she wants to live. I give you a low interest loan and stay in the house for 5 years. The house is yours.
Holy shit.
And I said, I know you said no before, but check this out. And she said no again.
No way.
Yeah. And I said, you know what? There's nothing here. Something good's going to come out of this experience. So I'm taking the job.
What was her pushback?
I think she just wanted to be in control because she was a Navy spouse, not in control of anything. We were just
tired of being told.
Yeah. And I totally understand. One more mission, I get it.
Yeah.
I was like, but it's not permanent. I need to put food on the table. And this is a
crazy good opportunity.
Great. And if I work at USC for 2 years and the kids get into USC, they go to school for free at USC.
Damn.
It's a private school. It's 300 and something for 4 years.
Jeez.
That's $1 million, brother.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
So I took the opportunity and, unfortunately the marriage didn't survive, but I found a tribe right away. Like I knew I couldn't recreate the SEAL locker room ever again, but I went to this cult called USC.
Yeah.
And they just accepted me, and they're like, we're happy to have you.
So you guys moved out there as a family?
No.
You didn't?
I moved out there.
Yeah.
And I ended up working the deal where I would be out there for a couple of weeks and I'd be home for a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Was it about a 50-50 or were you there?
It was
60-40?
55-45.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Man.
If something came up, I had to do a fundraiser or I'd have to go to a football game.
Had to.
Yeah. Then I'd have to stay a little bit longer. But for the most part, they were very accommodating.
And so what was the gist of what you were doing there? It was a veteran program, right?
Initially, I was into fundraising,
okay,
which I sucked at. And after that, my boss said, he's like, hey, I just wanted to get you out here. You just seem like you'd be a great fit.
Yeah.
However, this isn't working out. Where would you like to work? And I said, I would love to work for a gentleman named Mark Todd. And he's in charge of all veteran stuff. And that was at 11 o'clock. And at 3 o'clock, I was working for the new guy.
Wow.
Yeah. They were just so accommodating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jinx. Man, that's incredible. So what, in terms of like that liaison or working with veterans, what was the kind of the mission statement of what you were trying to accomplish?
Well, I realized that it was a transition program that didn't have a name yet.
Oh, okay.
Because they were coming from service, got into a prestigious top 20 university, and all of a sudden have their military career, either coming back from combat or whatever they were doing, and all of a sudden they're with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds, don't speak the language, don't fit in, and they were having trouble transitioning. And then I realized that we were focusing so much on the individual service member that I realized that the family's also going through a transition because of my situation. It wasn't just me. My wife at the time was going through it. The kids were going through it. The dog was going through it. Everybody was experiencing this transition thing. So the mission became just to help service members and their families. And I caveated and bold and highlight the family transitions. And it took some time because everything's in a silo and you have to really make relationships to push anything forward. And then unfortunately my wife filed for divorce. And then instead of, and I was crashing at the time, like my cognitive stuff was starting to, my invisible stuff was starting to manifest because life was quiet and like, again, I couldn't learn new stuff very well. Yeah. And so what do team guys do when they're struggling? They pile on more shit. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to go to grad school now. This is a great idea.
Man.
So I applied to grad school.
Did you stay out there for the full 2 years or even longer?
I stayed out there for 4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you went all the way through grad school?
Yeah.
And were you going through grad school and still doing that position?
Mm-hmm. And commuting.
Wow. So she files for divorce. You're full-time student, working for the university and flying back and forth to see your kids.
Yep.
Was that a tough, were you staying at their house or did you have to get a fucking hotel or how did you manage
Well,
that?
initially I was staying at my house because I was...
it's my house.
It's my house. And so once she filed for divorce, bought out my portion of the house. So once I went very binary, it wasn't emotional anymore. It was, how do I stay close to my kids? So I bought a house in the same neighborhood. And it was 6 houses down around the corner. So my kids, the idea was to have my kids be able to just walk to my house. It's not this big effort to see their dad. Yeah. And that's what I did. So I bought a house 6 houses down. And eventually things fell apart to the point to where I ended up moving back in 2020.
All the way back to Virginia, totally.
Yeah.
But you did finish your graduate degree.
Yeah. When I selected the course, I knew I wouldn't be able to stay out there long term. Yeah. But I was so enamored with all things USC that
it's as prestigious as it can.
So I was like, well, I'm going to do an online program, and then I will, so I can graduate from wherever. Yeah. So that's what I did.
Oh, that's cool. Another Patreon question in relation to being a college student all of a sudden after all that life experience. Frithison asks, I would like to know about his time at the University of Southern California and his opinion on student loan forgiveness. What advice would he give someone graduating from high school with no resources or community support and low financial literacy?
I would go to a community college locally because, one, financially they're low cost, and most major universities take your credits and apply them. So save money. The education level's the same at the gen ed level. And then pick where you are a better fit. So let's say that you want to go to Harvard, but you academically aren't there. Go to where is a great fit for you and that you're going to graduate, and then go to that university. Yeah. In 2 years. Okay. And one of the secrets is, or at least when I was there, it doesn't matter. They only count towards we only let 2% of people in for the fall semester. Yeah. So if you go in the spring semester, you can have a 2.0 and you can get accepted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a little life hack. Huh?
Yeah, a little academic life hack.
Yeah.
So,
and once you're in, right?
Yeah, once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Man, student loan forgiveness. Do you have a position on that?
I think that you should not get your loans forgiven.
Yeah.
If you can't afford a $300,000 to $300,000 loan, then I think you need to assess what works best for you, because they're just looking for a degree.
Yeah.
Later on, you can go to grad school and get another bachelor's degree from, when you can afford it, from the school that you want to go to. But if you're taking out $300,000, I mean, at no point, I can't get a $300,000 loan for a house as an adult, as opposed to an 18-year-old, and it's like, yeah, just $100,000.
Yeah.
It's intellectually lazy.
Yeah.
You know, you're a smart person to get into the university, but they're not taught financial literacy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, when they have a job that pays minimum wage, and then they have to pay $300,000 in loans back.
Yeah.
It's real all of a sudden.
I mean, shit, even if you're making six figures, like, you know, after you have your house, your living expenses, everything else, and now you also have a $300,000 student loan to pay off with God knows what interest rate. Yeah. I mean, that's going to take you your lifetime to pay that back.
Yeah.
I am curious, so what years were you there at USC?
2016 to 2020.
Okay. Did you see, from a kind of general standpoint, a slanting or, I guess, culture of liberalism that was blatantly obvious in terms of the institution?
Yes, it had started from the professor's level. And right when I got there, Me Too had just started. And it was, microaggressions and stuff like that. And you couldn't speak because you might offend somebody. But my whole thing was like, well, you're at school to learn, and part of that learning process is disagreeing with other people and having discussions and figuring what the real world is like, and
maybe even getting your feelings hurt.
Right. Yeah. And it now became, we're going to coddle these students to such a degree where you can't offend them. Every space is a safe space, and they're in this bubble for 4 years. But as soon as they leave that bubble and go out into the real, they're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
And an employer, they're like, well, I'm offended that you said that. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to work here. Yeah, beat it.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, beat it.
Yeah.
You know, so it was, but yes, and USC is unusually a conservative campus, more so than you would think.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, it was the liberalizing of that next generation that was very stark, and you just couldn't offend anybody.
Yeah. Man. It seems like it's only gotten worse, you know, even in the last 4 years since you've left there. As you see, you know, you're the only person I know that has gone through a big institution's university program, you know, fairly recently, that's, you know, similar age as me, similar mentality, been around the world, has a pretty well-rounded perspective as to how the world works. I'm curious to get your take when you see the magnitude of these like pro-Palestinian rallies on college campuses to the degree with which they're taking place. What's your take on that? Now
I am biased in this way because I've been to Israel, and I have a Jewish family that adopted me in LA.
Yeah.
And they're wonderful. Yeah. And, you know, everywhere we've been to, either Afghanistan, Iraq, Colombia, you know, people are 99% the same. They just want to be left alone and raise their family or be with their family or survive. But to openly want genocide is appalling. And I don't think I think there's a place for protesting, but to call for the annihilation of another group is, you know, that should not be allowed.
Yeah.
You should feel physically safe. Your ideas may not be safe, but physically you should be safe.
Yeah.
From the student body to the faculty. I mean, you have faculty that are getting involved in this.
Yeah.
In this protest, and it's just one. I think for the most part they don't understand the issue, or they don't understand the depth of the issue, and they have talking points, and they may not have even met a Jewish student or a Palestinian.
To me, the most alarming thing for me is the disconnect of, of the isolation of using the word Jew as, like, for the people that are protesting, like they're using that word as though it's not something that it is face value. And by that, I mean, if you were to replace that with black, imagine a group of white students protesting and saying what they're saying, but about black people.
Right.
Like, there's zero chance that would last more than about 30 seconds.
Right. Rightfully so.
Right. And so why do you think that there is such a contrast in that being allowed?
Like, I liken it to when, at the height of our conflicts in the Middle East, you could not say anything bad about the Muslim community, but you could completely trash the Christian community. And I think it's kind of the same. For some reason, we've given our society and the world as a whole permission to traumatize the Jewish community. And it's open permission. They wouldn't say that about black people because they know that that's not allowed. You wouldn't say that about Muslim because you know that's not allowed, or Asians because it's just not allowed. But for some reason, the world has said, for the Jewish people, you get a pass.
Yeah.
And not only do you get a pass, you are supported in that pass.
Yeah.
And under no other circumstances is that allowed, rightfully so. And it's heartbreaking on both sides because when I was in Israel, we went out to the desert, and my handler was with me, and we go out to this gas station, service station, and this gentleman, we walk in and say, "Hey, sir, can we eat?" He's Palestinian, I'm black, this other guy's Jewish. And then
sounds like the start of a joke.
Yeah, right. So I'm shitting myself because I don't have a weapon, and the guy looks at us and says, "Do you mind watching the store for a few minutes while I'll be right back?" And my Jewish handler's like, "Yeah, we'll be here." I'm like,
"This is a setup."
I was like, "You understand what's getting ready to happen?" So I'm getting ready to I'm praying and stuff. I was like, "This is going to be the end," because we're supposed to hate each other, right?
Yeah.
The guy comes back 15 minutes later, cooks us the best meal I've ever had.
Wow.
We sat and talked for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then he said, finally I look around, I was like, "So you're Palestinian, I'm black, he's Jewish. Aren't we supposed to hate each other?" And he's like, "My friend, it's too hot out here for that shit." And he said, "I'm just happy you're here."
Yeah.
I was like, "Is it this easy?"
Yeah.
And it should be.
Yeah. It is.
It is.
If you let it be.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's why I take my stance on the Palestinian Israeli side, because we, as on a micro level, the three of us are clearly at cultural crossroads and odds. But on the micro level, we could sit down, you could make us a meal, and we could figure this out.
Yeah.
We just took some time to get to know each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I mean, it's an alarming trend for sure that I wish people would put some more thought into in terms of not being so hypocritical on. But Unsealed, Navy SEAL's Guide to Mastering Life's Transitions. I'm going to read a little kind of excerpt from the book in terms of the setup for it. SEALs are notorious for telling riveting stories without a shred of emotion. We talked about that earlier, no emotion, right? There's a good reason for that. They've been trained to keep their emotions at bay, to be hard so they can accomplish seemingly impossible missions. Rarely do you find a Navy SEAL who's willing to be vulnerable and share from the heart. Mark Greene is one of those SEALs. For years, he didn't understand how emotions played a part in decision-making. He had trained and worked under such extreme conditions that there was no room for subjectivity. Logic dominated his thoughts. That is, until he suffered an accident that ripped away his outer seal of protection. What he experienced was unparalleled. As a result, Mark became unsealed. The transition from college athlete to college dropout, then from SEAL training to enlisted SEAL, from sniper to civilian, proved more painful than exciting. One thing remained constant: Mark never suffered alone. Through the process of navigating his own difficult transitions and helping other veterans with theirs, Mark has discovered that there are 6 phases of transition, and each phase follows a predictable pattern. I'll let you take it from here and talk about those 6 phases to the degree with which, you feel like, and also just kind of set us up as to what prompted you to want to write the book and how that all happened.
All right. So I'll start at the end first I did not want to write the book.
Really?
Yeah. Because I thought there were so many more people who had a much better story than I did. And one gentleman said, he saw me speaking to the students at USC, and here I was, this 50-year-old dude telling my story to 18 to 22-year-olds. They didn't touch their phone the whole time.
Wow.
And I had their complete attention, and the Q&A, what they asked these amazing questions. And finally he said, I've had enough of you. And he said, we have money set aside. I have 4 ghostwriters. Pick one and write your book. He's like, you have an important story to tell. And the 12-year-old Mark said, well, you're not the boss of me.
Or the married Mark.
Or, yeah.
The husband Mark is like, Mark, you don't tell me what to do.
You're not telling me what to do. So then we took it, and I was writing it, and I had just heard the stats of how many service members had taken their own lives. And I realized that they were struggling with their transition cycle, whichever transition that is. For some reason, they're struggling with it. So at that point, I decided to just tell my story of transitions. And throughout the book, there are multiple transition points, like the New York story, or losing my dad, losing my athletic career, losing my SEAL career, getting divorced. All that stuff are transition points. And it's just a good, bad, or ugly. It's just what happened.
Yeah.
And the goal of it is to have either the service member read it or a significant other read it and say, hey, stupid, this is what you're going through.
Yeah.
And and I just want it to be a catalyst for getting some help.
Yeah.
Or even the kids could read it or see a podcast and say, hey, Dad, Mom, I think you need to read this book.
Yeah.
And so that was the catalyst for it.
Is there a group or a category that you would say that this book is mostly for?
It's mostly for service members.
Yeah.
On a micro level.
Would you say first responders fall in that same category?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. So service members, first responders, and then on a micro level, I think it really branches out to athletes because they spend thousands upon thousands of hours honing their craft to go to the next level. And 95% of them don't ever get that chance. You're going to be a professional something else.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you haven't prepared for your next life because you've been focused on practicing and games and stuff. So you don't know how to network. You don't know how to speak the language outside of athletics.
Yeah.
And that's also a significant transition, as significant sometimes as service members, because you could have been doing this sport since you were 5.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're 22 and what are you going to do next? So, and then it's also, if you're an entrepreneur and you had a company that you were building from the ground up and somebody bought it from you and now you're unemployed for the first time.
Yeah.
And your baby's growing without you. So there are multiple transition points. So I try to hit as many transition points as I can just to paint as broad a picture of the transitioning process.
To me, in hearing that, I would also say that I think really the book could or should be for anybody who, puts all of their time and energy into a specific identity, and then finds themselves not in that position anymore, where like their entire life was wrapped into X, and now they're in a different part of their life where it has nothing to do with it, and they feel like they've lost their identity.
Yeah,
is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, because that's what I experienced. Like one day I was Mark Greene, Friday, Mark Greene, the Navy SEAL, and all the prestige that goes with that. Walk around any base with a trident on, you're a celebrity, right? And then Saturday, I'm just Mark.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm shooting are emails now.
With the shitty dad jokes.
Jokes.
The New Balance shoes.
The white ones.
Yeah. Fucking knee-high socks, jean shorts walking around.
Jorts, yeah.
Oh, man, it's fucking awesome. No, it's great, and it's such an important thing. I mean, we've talked to a lot of veterans on this program, as well as first responder, law enforcement, and there's definitely a commonality in like the PTSD, mental health struggles that a lot of guys face who have been through traumatic shit. I mean, everybody has certain trauma and things that happen to them, but where those experiences seem to most negatively affect people is when they lose their identity and they have a lack of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
When they have a solid identity, they know who they are, they know what they believe in, and they feel fulfilled in whatever it is that they're doing, irrespective of what that is. As long as that's present, guys seem to be pretty happy and mentally healthy and stable and don't have significant issues. When there's an absence of that is when guys really fucking struggle and turn to pain pills or booze or a mixture of a lot of things and just get into some really dark places.
Mm-hmm. And even though I was in a very nurturing environment, because my environment in USC and LA was one of the most nurturing, but I still struggled.
Yeah.
And because I felt like I was a burden.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So I wasn't doing great at my new job in a new city. My marriage was falling apart. I wasn't being a great parent. And one day I'm just like, well, since I'm a burden, what would it be like if I just wasn't around to be a burden anymore? And that was, and like I said, I was in a great environment, but that still crept up. And once I felt like a burden, I was like, man, I should just check out, because
really,
yeah, I just didn't want to be a burden. It's the first time in my adult life that I felt like I was burdensome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Is there a specific thing that got you through that?
There's a dear friend of mine who I had out there, and, she could see that something had turned a corner, and she called one day and said, we all love you out here, right? You're super valuable, and just highlighted all the good that I was doing out there. And it was just enough to stop that spiral from going farther down.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I have guns at the house. Can you just come over and just pick them up for me? And she's like, yep, be right over. So I knew that I needed to get out of the house. So I took a 30-minute walk, and it'd take about 30 minutes for her to get here. I pulled up, she gave me a hug and took the stuff away. And I just recovered and was like, yeah, I can't imagine leaving my kids.
Yeah.
Or not succeeding at this mission that I was on. So I just needed a catalyst. But I mean, I could have, had I not been in a nurturing environment, or had booze been involved, or any other
substance,
or any other atmosphere I was in, I could have continued that downward spiral I could just be like, yeah, I am a burden.
How long of a period was that when you were in that mentality where you felt like, I need guns out of the house? And
like 4 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just 4 hours.
Wow. And then it was just like, so the next day it was back to...
Yep, I was like, okay, because I had never felt like a burden before, but I had a bad day on every level that day. Like, work wasn't going good, and I think I had just gotten something about the divorce, and I had gone home and I couldn't connect with my kids, and academically I sucked, and I was like, man,
it's like getting kicked on all sides.
Yeah.
Wow. That's powerful, man. Kudos to you for being self-aware enough, to recognize that. I think a lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah, I agree.
So with these 6 phases, you got isolation, indulgence, cocooning, emergence, grief, and resolution. Obviously, in the interest of some sort of brevity, can you kind of condense that whole thing?
Okay, isolation. I am an introvert by nature, so I do my best when I'm in solitude, processing. And then once I realize, like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to live? What am I good at? Then I indulge and I gorge myself on information and try to be a subject matter expert on what's next. And then I cocoon, and I just kind of go into my shell, having absorbed and taken in all the information. And that's where the transformation happens of Like I go in knowing that once I absorb all this stuff, I'm going to come out and then emerge as a productive member of society that knows what I'm good at, learns how to speak the language. There's hope. And then finally I have to come to the realization that I'm grieving the loss of being a team guy and going on missions and being around the best people in the world and losing family members or best friends to accidents throughout the 20 years. And, there's a grieving process. I think that we don't allow ourselves that grieving process.
Yeah.
And I think that's in those 6 pillars. I think I needed to experience all 6 of them. And I didn't experience them. I didn't experience them in sequence. I would start isolation and then that would get interrupted. And I would start to indulge and that would get interrupted. And I think once I was able to understand what the 6 things that I needed, I was like, wow, okay. And I wrote it down. And I think it can apply to anybody who's transitioning. The only thing that's different is if you're an extrovert, then you probably need to process it differently than I did.
Yeah.
But I think the rest of the pillars are pretty true across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. When you decided to write this, or I guess was kind of encouraged to, were there, I guess, points throughout that process where you questioned doing it, or where you were like, fuck, I don't even know what to put in here, or, and how did you work through that?
So once I found out what I was writing about, that's when I could hone in on it. Because before I was just telling stories and they weren't really coherent, and I just kept saying, well, my transition, that was a transition point that sucked. And then I woke up and was like, transition. And once I focused on that transition, then all the stories started to focus on the aspect of transition. And then Shelby was a magician and took my caveman and made it legible. And
awesome.
Really taught me how to write. And then the editor finally, she said, okay, what you and Shelby have done is incredible. You're talking at your audience, not to your audience. And she gave me a couple examples, and I bugged the shit out of her to get the why. And then once I figured out the why, I wrote that first chapter about the New York City meeting, and she's like, perfect. And then we rewrote the book, adding emotion and how I felt and what the street meat smelled like when I was walking down New York City.
Yeah.
And I just described in depth on not only what I was experiencing, but what I experienced throughout each story.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a powerful transition and process for sure. I mean, it's a lot to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, I will say Unsealed really is a book for anybody who finds themselves lost in terms of their identity and is trying to find purpose.
Yeah.
I do have a Patreon question. This is Ty Gauthier. I hope that's how you pronounce his last name. I fucked this up the last time too, I think. But in your heart, through all of the success and all of the failures, reaching a lot of your goals and possibly failing too, what now makes you the happiest and the most joyful? What means the most to you?
My kids and my relationship with my kids are the most important and impactful.
Yeah.
Because to watch somebody grow from zero literally to adulthood, and start to thrive on their own because of how you nurtured them and how you brought them up and the values you instilled in them, and you just get to watch them experience life, and then when they come back, or you have these moments with your kids, like every time they walk in the front door, it's like I haven't seen them forever.
Yeah.
I'm just
for you or for them?
For me.
Yeah.
They're just probably like, Dad, seriously,
God,
bro,
will you stop it?
Beat it.
Yeah.
But
so lame.
Yeah. and I say common words like slang now, and they just to piss them off.
Oh, I know, dude. It's so awesome. I do the same shit. It's like the one big difference I notice between like when we were growing up and now, like the speed with which slang changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously social media, everything travels so much faster. It's like words that we used in high school, pretty much the whole fucking thing, the whole time. There wasn't 8,000 of them. You didn't need like a urban slang dictionary,
right? Yeah.
thesaurus translator to figure it out.
Douchebag was douchebagger.
Yeah, and it's like now it's just like, number one, I feel like a lot of the things that we said, at least you could kind of understand why they meant what they meant.
Yeah.
There's at least some link or connection. Now I'm just like, how the fuck do you get that out of that? Like, explain it. I don't know.
Yeah. What does dead ass mean?
Yeah. Like, well, where the fuck did it come from? Yeah, I don't know. It's like, well, why do you say it? Yeah, I don't know that either.
Yeah.
Do you know anything?
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, I do the same shit, man. I think it's just like a responsibility as a dad.
I agree.
Is to try to embarrass the shit out of your kids, you know, especially in that high school, I'm too fucking cool, so I'm going to, I love that shit.
Yeah.
And, fucking with them when they mess up. Like, you started out as an orgasm and it's pretty much gone downhill since then. You fucking embarrassment. Like,
what I do? I understand my dad would give us wins back then. Like we'd fuck something up and he knew we fucked it up, but he's just like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything about that. Just let him get a win on that one. Yeah. So I let my kids get wins every once in a while.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. It's rare, but sometimes it's like, all right, hey, stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to do better.
Yeah. Yep.
Being terrible.
Yeah, I know it. One question, just from kind of a personal aspect, is what advice would you give other fathers who are facing deployments with young children at home?
I found out that kids view time differently. Like I asked my daughter Riley because I felt bad about the life I put her through, and I said, Riley, how has this life affected you? And she's like, it's all I've ever known. It's my normal. I was like, well, what about me being gone all the time? She's like, I don't actually remember you being gone all that much. I do remember you being at every practice and every game, and that stupid red hat that you would wear to every game.
What hat was it?
I would often show up late, and but I got it from my dad. My dad would come to all of our sporting events, and he would wear something.
Oh, that you could pick
that I could pick out. I was like, okay,
gotcha.
Dad's here.
Yeah. So you throw on a MAGA hat.
Yes.
So nobody's missing you on that one.
Yeah. So I had a red hat. So when they weren't sure if I was there, they would look around, they'd see the red hat. It's like, okay, Dad's here.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So they value, or they see time, they experience time differently. So just be present when you are with them, because all my kids remember are me teaching them how to ride bikes, or me being at every practice, every recital, all that stuff. And they don't really remember me being gone.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. What now?
I am, okay. So the book came out of nowhere. So we're doing a book, and now we're pitching a situation comedy.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Based loosely on this book and the experience of the writer, whose father was also in the Navy. So we went on 14 interviews in a day, and there was just hellacious, but we got a lot of traction. So we're pitching it to networks and see if somebody's going to bite.
Can you say who's behind it production wise, or is that
Teleria Media?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Bob Morgan's the CEO, and Jamie Anderson's the writer of the
nice.
sitcom.
Damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
How much input do you have as far as like script and creative value, or whatever you want to call it?
Well, we signed a contract, so if it gets picked up and goes into production, then I'll be an executive producer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'll have say in some aspects of it, but Jamie's a creator, so it's her baby. So she's going to be the creator. Bob's going to be he's the CEO of Teleria.
Oh, nice.
And then I'm going to be an executive producer.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome, man.
And she wants to incorporate me into the show in some way.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
like a cameo?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I might get my SAG card.
Yeah, hell yeah. Dude, that's cool as hell, man.
So that's what, and awesome. Just promoting the book and starting to get out as a public speaker as the book gains traction. So it came out in January, and probably 6 months in, we should start doing public speaking.
Yeah, awesome. You can get it on Amazon.
You can get it on Amazon.
Awesome.
And you can get it on themarkgreene.com.
Okay.
However, if you get it on Amazon, please leave a review.
Yeah.
As it pushes it up in the algorithm.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
it'll get more traction. So
Yeah.
I prefer the website, but I know how the world works. And it's 99 cents on Amazon on Kindle, and then $19.99 for the hardcover.
Awesome.
So go ahead and pick it up.
Yeah, you pick that shit up.
Pick that shit up.
Pick that fucking shit
Sexual.
up.
Do I have a mic to drop for sexual chocolate?
You can rip that one off the thing and drop it. Somebody will do that someday, right? Man, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your story and reconnecting. It's very special to me. When I think about 20 years ago where you and I were on the top of a mountain making a $10 bet about Marcy fucking Playground, and now where we're both at. And it's just, man, I couldn't be prouder of you and happier that we were able to do this, because that's fucking awesome.
Yeah. So. And Mike, you were such a great guy. Even back then, you were just magnetic, and to watch you, to run into each other at the team every once in a while, and then to watch you on the news, and then to watch what you've done, I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
very much.
And you've done amazing work for not only yourself, but for so many others. And I would not have missed this at all.
I appreciate it, man. And likewise to you. It's been meteoric and just humbling to watch. We do have a gift for you.
Oh, okay.
And I'm actually going to let you pick. There's two different styles of what's in that black box.
Really?
The other is a coin, but
okay.
Each mic drop guest gets a.
Oh, it's not just for me?
Well, I mean, all guests, but it could be.
Ooh,
but
okay.
yeah, put on your shit kickers. That'll probably serve you well in
Nice.
Virginia. So there's that one. There's actually tridents in that one.
Okay. Let me see this one.
I think maybe in the other one too, but they're kind of contrasted,
This has such an Elvis vibe to it.
Agreed. Yeah. So I mean, it's the world's your oyster, whichever one you want. But
because I'm in Texas and it's got to be bigger in Texas, I'm gonna go with Big Mike right here.
Amen. Yeah. If you see on the outskirts of that, there's little tridents too, which I think is a pretty cool touch.
Oh, that is dope.
Yeah. It's subtle, but they're in there.
That's
so,
nice.
Yeah. So
that's fancy.
Good shit. To you guys, listener, thank you for supporting the show and for listening to a good, close, personal friend of mine that, we've known each other for a long time, which I can't say that about most guests. So I'm telling you, pick his book up, go to his website and support everything that he has going on. If the show comes to fruition, especially if you're in a cameo role, check it out. And thank you to the Patreon members. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the support. I hope you enjoy the behind-the-scenes banter that he and I get into about a custom engraved pistol, as well as a nightclub "Where All the White Women At" story. Oof. "Where All the White Women At" story, which you'll enjoy. That's only on Patreon. Go check that out. Thank you to you guys for your support. Mark, is there anything you want to wrap up? Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, Mike, thanks so much.
I asked you too much, didn't I?
No, you didn't.
Right.
I think we need to dive deeper into the old movies, like Airplane, sure. Maybe next time.
Yeah. We could do an episode like MST3K style, where we're just fucking watching movies, talking shit. So
yeah, but I just want to let you know how much I appreciate having me back on, and how much I've appreciated our friendship over the years, even though we haven't been able to connect.
It feels like we didn't miss a beat.
Right. It feels like we just talked yesterday.
Yeah. Yep. Amen. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother.
To you guys, hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, feel free to choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.